Welcome, everybody. We are back with Jack for the first time since I think that Hexcrawl episode, which was several months ago. First things first. That was a while ago. I think it was like 4 months ago. First things first. I have had people ask when we're gonna do the part 2 where we do the mission. We will do it. Shit's just been really busy. I felt like this is probably more of a priority than that one. But welcome, Jack, because we are gonna do the breakdown of the entire book. Weirdly, though,
what book, Alex? Which one could it be?
We're doing Phased Out Number. It's right there on screen in two different and this time I actually have the book, because the Atlas one, I didn't have the book for that, so I'm very happy to actually have a physical copy for one of these breakdowns. This will not be quick, but it will probably be, I'd say it might actually be shorter than the Atlas one.
I think it will. There's plenty of stuff to talk about, but there's less little things, I guess, since the Atlas was just enumerating so many like story things that you could dwell on any of them forever.
And we talked about the lore a lot in that one, whereas this, both Jack and I are talking, we're like, we're going to touch on the lore, but at the end of the day, it really is certainly a cyberpunk setting. It has cool stuff in it, but like there's not a lot of stuff that we need to really go over, whereas the Latter Earth has a lot more unique aspects to it.
Like I think in pretty much every book, I have not read Stars Without Number in probably 5 or 6 years, but in every book he uses like his own, or at least makes it appear as though he's used his own procedures to make a world for it. And in the core Worlds Without Number book, it's like, oh, this is fucking awesome. Like this is really interesting. Like it's a cool setting. That's not just a generic fantasy setting. And in this, he clearly used the tools again, but it's a cyberpunk setting, all right.
So he's got some fun stuff, but we don't really need to go over it too much, because the only stuff that's not in the free PDF is the supplemental stuff, which we'll get to at the end, because it's at the end of the book. There's also some of the mechanics we're not going to really go over too much, other than because combat's changed quite a bit in terms of like crunchiness. So we're going to go over that stuff, but like, I don't think we really need to go over the attributes and that sort of stuff. All the things that are already Worlds Without Number and
we can fly through those.
Stars Without Number. But I guess, for anybody who's somehow here doesn't know what this is on this niche thing, Stars Without Number is an RPG made by Kevin Crawford, made for cyberpunk settings. It is compatible with Worlds Without Number and Stars Without Number, and I guess Wolves of God if you want to go for some real avant-garde shit, mixing Stars Without Number and Wolves of God. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a D20 system. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that intro at all, Jack, but I think that's pretty much it before we get into it.
Yeah, as far as like the core system, it's D20 system, like Alex said. It's very much like a early D20, like basic expert BXD&D. There is good stuff in here. I will say, like, I mean, Kevin Crawford's a good writer and is like seems to be a good dude as far as I can tell. Not that I know him, but you can run into some tricky situations with cyberpunk stuff and like being kind of insensitive, and he manages to avoid that. What else? It's got a skill system is the only thing that really sets it apart from like a lot of similar OSR games. It's a 2d6 skill system normally, and it results in a pretty decent chance of success even for in most average circumstances, even for a low-level PC. So it doesn't feel bad, like a lot of D20 skill systems do.
And also, for anybody who's in the chat, we're probably not going to answer too many questions as we're going along. We might stop at certain places to answer questions. Because, Gray, I just saw you have a question there about Godbound. Personally, I don't know enough about Godbound to know if it's compatible. What I would say that if that's compatible with Worlds Without Number and other ones, then it should be. But I do think
there is a whole chunk in the back.
Okay, there's a chunk on what it's compatible with. Because
there's a section that's like, how would you use X with this? I actually don't know if it talks about Godbound.
Yeah, I'll be honest though. I think this one is different enough that I do think it is compatible, but you're gonna have to do way more work with this one because you have 2 different types of ACs.
There's 3 full pages of how you would use this with other Sign No Mind games, and there's usually like 1 in the other games. I mean, given obviously there's more games with every successive one that comes out, but like Worlds Without Number has like 1 page on how you would use it with other stuff.
Oh, Worlds Without Number and Stars Without Number are pretty much 1 for 1. Actually, to the point where it's kind of funny, because I remember talking to you, Jack, about this, where Worlds Without Number and Stars Without Number, the PCs are on the same level, which makes it funny that futuristic sci-fi guys fighting, like, barbarians with, like, bows and spears are, like, on the same footing, which is funny, but yeah.
That actually gets brought up. We'll talk about it because it's at the end of the book later. But it's funny that gets explicitly brought up in his, like, how to use this with other games.
That's very funny.
Because it's interesting. I mean, I don't think we need to go through that in like a ton of detail when we get there, but I think it's as with a lot of other places in this book, there are like little hints that I think provide an interesting like look into how Kevin writes games or how he views writing games. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, but I think with that, I think we can get into the first section, which is character creation, which is probably the part that most people are interested in because it is different and also because there's more players than there are GMs. And I personally have to say that I fucking love the character creation in this game. To the point that even though it makes sense for this genre, I kind of wish Worlds Outnumber was also designed like this instead of classes, because I actually really I think the classes work well, but I do think this build is just a really fun way to build characters.
And you probably could pretty easily rip apart Worlds Outnumber and do this, because at its core, it is providing you like the same amount of character.
Yeah.
Like you have 2 core abilities, which in this case are called edges, where like if you're playing Worlds Outnumber, right, if you're the fighter, you get the reroll once per scene and add your level to damage. Or you like 2, I think those are the 2 class abilities for the warrior, and one of those appears in here as an edge.
I think so both everyone of them do. I think
maybe.
I think both those classes, because there's Killing Blow and then there's
I think it's less strong though, because it's just the one, it's Killing Blow, and then there's the one that makes it so you have the same base attack progression as the fighter does, or the warrior does.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah, that one's also there. Yeah, which is there's On Target. Which is your base attack bonus equal to your character level. But yeah, so for the characters, I'm going to overall skip over things, or I'll touch on them, but we're going to skip over the stuff that like is not unique to this one. Again, you can get this PDF for free on DriveThruRPG, so if there's anything that we sort of jump over, kind of gloss over that you want to look more into, it's completely free just to get it for yourself and look at what you're interested in. Because the character building works essentially the same, where you roll your stats 36 down the line. You can replace 1 with a 14.
Or you could take an array.
Yeah. And then you
attribute modifiers are very low in this game. +2, -2 is the normal max for every stat.
Except for this game with one edge that does change that, which is a very good edge.
You've always been able to get extras, but it's usually you have to take one of your really significant resources for character creation and spend it.
Yeah. And next you take a background, which will inform your skills and stats, where it works exactly the same way as it does in Worlds Outnumber, where you can either choose from the learning table or roll 3 times across the growth and learning table to build up your character, and you get your free skill and all that. So that's all the same. Where it changes at first is the contacts, which makes sense for the genre. You can either have 2 acquaintances or 1 friend, and there are tables to generate them, or you can make up your own. What you're going to want to do for these is definitely people who are useful, though. You don't want to just make Larry the guy that you know at the bar who like doesn't do anything. It should be like Larry the bartender who can give you, information on things that you can go to, be like, hey, like I need some information. Have you heard anything about like this gang or this stuff here? Or they could be like a fixer or like a weapons dealer, a corpo that owes you a favor, stuff like that.
And this is the first place I'll say it. There are a lot of, hold on, I'll back up for a second. So if anyone's ever played like a more narrative, like heist game, like I think Forged in the Dark and all of its, Blades, the original Blades, and all the Forged in the Dark games are really like the prime examples of like, it's built to do a heist. I mean, Heart is kind of similar, Spire is kind of similar.
Yeah.
But those games usually, they have a lot of mechanics that support you narratively being able to do heists without like a single bad roll being like, well, all your prep was for nothing and you're fucked over. And this game, I was going into this, I was like, how is this going to work in a more like trad game, D20 like space? And there are a lot of, at least to me, like very clear influences from specifically Forged in the Dark that I was really happy to see in here. Like you get contacts, you get a positive and a negative contact in those games to begin with. And this is, I love seeing contacts built in because you need to be able to have access to undefined stuff to be able to do heists. Like there has to be something for you to exploit that is not, I've written down on my sheet already that this person is the person you would have to ask to know like the security layout. It's like, no, you need to be able to have a flexible way to give the player the information.
Exactly.
And so this is, and stuff. So
yeah, and you should in that same sort of vein, you should also probably make the contact not overly specific for this one thing, and more make them kind of a general thing that you could use later. So like, not specifically one corporation, maybe that'll be fleshed out once you meet them, but just leave them as maybe like corpo. That so you go like, okay, there's a corporation that we're dealing with in our first game. Maybe that's who they work for, or they know somebody who works within that, and then you can then flesh them out from there. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff like that, because there's also stuff that we'll get into with the hacking rules later called access, and contacts can give you access. They give you like plans or codes or things that might give you stuff to make it easier. So there's a lot of things. They could give you a key card that lets you in easier. They could give you access to make the hacker's job easier. Fucking explosives, whatever it is. So it is a really good system to have that. And it also just forces players to have that, because I do have with some players, especially OSR games, where I'm like, hey, give me a contact and a name and this stuff, and they can be a little bit like, I'm kind of on the spot here. So having these tables you can roll on just gives them those prompts to like jump off of, which is nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, after contacts, there's 2 pages for that. There's one roll contacts, and there's just the quick two you can roll. We get into the really, really fun edges, which is basically like your class abilities in the sense that you don't have the class.
They're all really strong as a result. They're all things that are designed to stay relevant throughout the entire 10 levels.
Yes.
That's a classic thing where it's like, this is really good at level 1. What about at like level 8? It's useless. It's you could easily get this thing in some other way at level at like level 6 or something.
Yeah, no, these are really cool. So at the beginning of the game, you start with 2 operator edges, except the underdog rule, which I think is a really, really good rule, because I do know a lot of players, even the ones who like old school stuff, get kind of bummed out they get low stats. Yeah, I know, it's just a thing. I get it's just how players work. But basically the way the underdog rule works is that PCs whose total attribute modifiers are negative get a bonus edge. So if all your attributes equal -1 or less, you get a 3rd edge, which is really, really good.
I will say it is like statistically almost impossible for that to happen unless you go out of your way to do it.
Yeah.
Like if you do a random roll, you're guaranteed to have at least 1+1. You have to roll pretty poorly, and then you have to have, I mean, I guess you could, like I said, you could do it on purpose. You could take none of your growth rolls. You take them all on the learning table.
Yeah.
And like, so you just get stats.
Just get skills.
Go out of your way to do that. But this game generally produces, for its challenges, fairly competent characters by default, which is nice.
I also say this to a lot of players, where I'm like, that +1 is useful, but in a lot of times it's not game breaking. Your stupid plan, where you just go in without thinking, will get you killed way more than your stats ever will. You just have to be smart. Even a shitty character can fucking get through anything if you're at least smart. And I mean, obviously get lucky with the rolls and everything, but this really isn't going to be a game that like that matters too much if you're off by 1 versus somebody else.
Yeah, like, and it's funny too, because like I mentioned, like you kind of have to go out of your way for that to happen. Like you could roll all in the learning table and get like extra skills. A skill +1 is way more meaningful than a stat +1 is. Like a +1 to a skill is like, cool, you on average will succeed at on a harder difficulty, versus a +1 at cool, you have a 5% better chance of hitting somebody. Like,
yeah. Okay. Also, if you're a GM like me, I often get really annoyed when somebody's really good at something, because if you have like a 2 in a skill, you're like, aren't you like one of the best like in the country? Like you're one of the best in the area. Like, aren't you?
Yeah, those are tweaked a little bit in
Cyberpunk?
This to it's like the best in the city or something like that.
But other way, a 2 to a
veteran
skill,
expert. One respected even by those with considerable expertise or experience.
So in that case, you are an expert, and depending on what is happening, a lot of times if you have a 2, I'm like, you have a 2 in that, I'm not gonna make you roll for this and potentially fail this thing. It's not that hard of a thing. I'm just gonna give you that because you are that good at this thing. Whereas if you do have a stat, even though that's more, even though that stat can be used across different skills, I might not give you just that. But that is obviously more of a GM thing than like the game. But I really hate when players have put all their points into something, and then there's a not that hard of a thing for them to pass, and I'm like, oh, sorry, you rolled 2 1s, so I guess you don't get this, even though this should have been like an easy thing. There's no stress, there's nothing, nobody's coming after you or anything like that, so you should be able to just pass this.
I'll go ahead and do my requisite. Like, I really like the skill system in this game. 2d6 produces a really nice curve where you're averaging like a 7.5, and like a normal low difficulty task is a 6. Yeah. So on average, if you are trained in the skill at all, if you have it at a 0, which means you can do it professionally for a living, like you can do it. And like Alex just said, if you have a 0 in a skill and you want to do something without any time pressure that you could reasonably do, that gives you like a really good rationale to not call for rolls.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I mean, obviously, if there's no chance of interesting,
if there's not an interesting
results
failure
of failure, then I'm not going to call for a roll anyway. but it gives you a good baseline as a GM, that like kind of competency bars where it says what that means explicitly. Like, you could do this for a living.
Yeah.
That it lets you go, yeah, of course you can do that. I'm not going to call for a roll on that.
Yeah.
You're good at this, regardless of whether one roll is bad.
So I don't know if you want to go over any of these edges, because there's some really, really fun.
I mean, I want to talk about Wired, but that's literally alphabetically the last one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you need to go through each one, but there, I mean, just going through the first 4 here on the first page. Educated is what the full expert in Worlds Without Number gets. You may pick a bonus skill of your choice whenever you gain skill points from a character level advance, and you get a bonus skill point. Honestly, pretty solid. A little bit basic, but it's still.
I think that's the half expert gets that. Full expert gets
right. Full expert gets that, plus they get to re-roll failed non-combat skills once per scene.
Yeah, they get like the veterans,
which is also another edge that's here, I'm fairly sure.
Yeah.
Face, you gain connect as a bonus skill. Oh, that's one thing too about some of these edges and the foci that are also great, is that a lot of them will give you those bonus skills just like in the other games. Yeah. So that's a good strategy depending on how you want to put your skills where, is to. Because I'm currently running a one-on-one saves game for my girlfriend, and she rearranged a bunch of stuff. Once she saw that she could take like 2 foci, because she's like level 3, she was like, oh, I'm actually gonna take this foci and this foci, because then I'm gonna get skill points with those, and I can actually put skill points into other things instead of, so it is good to sort of see how you can strategize with that. But Face gives you connect once per game week whenever it's convenient. Gain 1 temporary acquaintance contact of your choice. Describe them in any way the GM finds acceptable. You lose touch with this contact after you use this edge again, but you can use this edge to connect with them again at a different time. You may also provide favors or payments sufficient to cement the relationship at the GM's discretion. This is a good one. I think it's also one to be careful with depending on who your GM is, because some GMs, like, this is a very useful one if you have somebody who is more narrative heavy and also is going to be more, I don't know, flexible with how these things work. A GM who's more about just purely combat and other things might or feels like you're getting around things. I
feel like this would be a harder. And there was something when I was reading through this, I might have a note somewhere if I can even fucking read my notes, that I do think that generally here, because Cyberpunk as an RPG genre, I'm not going to say as like a genre as a whole, because it's a pretty broad like literary genre, like structurally is, classically been like the heist thing, or, doing missions. Yeah. Right. And if you have that framework as like your standard expectation for how the game runs, it makes some of these skills inherently more useful. Yeah. Like you could totally get, I think there are, I guess to put it succinctly, there are less foci and edges in this that could potentially not come up in the game than there are in something like Worlds Without Number. Yeah. Like, there are totally skills in Worlds Without Number or foci that you could spend and they could theoretically never come up.
Yeah, because you'd just be doing like a big dungeon crawl campaign where like...
That's cool. You took Rider. Congratulations.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
And I didn't run into as many of those in this where I was like, oh man, I could totally... And like, given that's a GM should not allow you to take it if that's the case. I didn't run into that as much here because the genre is so much more focused than fantasy. Right.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'll just do these last 2 here, then I'll let you do the next few. The next one is Focus, which is just you begin to play with an extra focus pick. You may choose this edge more than once. So yeah, you can start the game with 3 foci instead of the 1 that you start with if you want to. Which is good. There's less foci in this than there are in Worlds Without Number. They're still pretty good. They're still the same sort of superpowers, but a lot of the foci have been turned into edges, or at least some variation on that, or close to edges. So this is a good one. But just to give an example, when I was making a character on stream, I made a hacker guy, and I chose the focus skill to do stuff. I could have just taken, I don't know if I took the hacker, the next one on the next page is the hacker edge. I can't remember if I did or not.
Program as a bonus skill.
Yeah, I might have just taken a foci that was hacker based. So there's different ways to build your character, but yeah, the focus one's good if you have a specific focus that you really, really want, but some of these will sort of bypass that anyway. The next one is Ghost, which is every edgy character's favorite. Uncannily elusive, gain sneak as a bonus skill, and the fighting withdrawal combat action as an on-turn action for you, which is honestly solid. Once per scene, reroll a failed sneak check related to sneaking or going unseen. Once per game day, as a move action, move up to 10 meters without anyone around you seeing you move. If you use this movement to get behind cover, you might seem to vanish outright to onlookers. That is a fucking sick. That is a really, really cool one.
And I'll draw another just comparison to more narrative heist games. This game has a lot of abilities to get rerolls for things. There are so many different mechanical systems that will give you rerolls for stuff, which is great in games where you're dealing with like a flat die roll. Yeah. Because a reroll, you're functionally giving yourself a die curve, right, on a reroll. Yeah, it feels bad to roll like a 2 on something you're really good at and then be like, well, cool, we fucked the mission up. And it's like, yeah, but you're really good at this, so roll it again. You took this ability to do it.
That's another point too, because this is something that I screw up sometimes, but The other thing to do with this game, because you're saying how heavily it is on heists or just, incursions, is that you're going to probably want to do a lot more failing forward in this game than you might in Worlds Outnumber, just because if the door is locked and it's the only way you had in, or like they don't really have means to get in another way, maybe having it open and then having the alarm go off, like they still got it open but the alarm goes off, so you still triggered it but you can still keep moving forward. I do think is very important in this versus like a sandbox, dungeon crawler game where it's like, okay, we screw up this door, I guess we can just go down a different hallway.
Find another way there.
Yeah,
we'll get into it when we get to the actual mission stuff, but
do you want to do the next one?
Yeah, so this is Hacker, which is the one that Alex alluded to. You get program, you get a cranial jack, which is like you can hack stuff with just that, but you also get a shitty deck. And the deck, if for anybody who's somehow here and unfamiliar with the conceits of Cyberpunk, is a little handheld hacker computer that lets you hack into stuff and gives you bonuses.
I always think of that Yu-Gi-Oh toy, remember?
The dual deck
whenever I think of a deck, I always just think it's like that, where it's just like, I'm just gonna pick which one.
It kind of is, honestly. I won't talk about it now, I'll talk about it later. But this game does give a very strong, you have plenty of space to make your own setting. There's like lots of different like core changes that you can have that are like enumerated in here, like what the tone is and like what the focus is of your setting. But it is very explicit about the fact that this is like, to have it work, to have like these conceits of like Cyberpunk as a genre work, wireless shit is really not common. Like in the future, this is to me like akin to how I really liked how the magic in Ladder Earth, why can't I think of the name?
The Legacy?
Yeah, the Legacy, how that gave like a reason for why magic does the things it does in the setting, where it's like, it's the future. Wireless communication is really unsecure. Everything is wired. There is no major internet like corpse control, all of these intranets and small nets. Like there's no fucking Wikipedia in this setting. Cell phones probably exist. They don't have apps. There's no app store. Like you're using to make a phone call. And it's probably really unsecure. So I really like that it mechanically is like, there is a reason why things happen this way. So like, don't be like, why am I not hacking from like 100,000 miles away? It's like, because you needed landline. You got to look at it.
You can hack with VR goggles, but there is a penalty, a -2 penalty to that.
And you also have to be within 30 meters in visual range to do it.
You have to be able to see it. There's a lot of stuff like that where I think you can do essentially any Cyberpunk world with this game, but it is heavily fronted towards doing the 80s sort of retro futuristic, which I do like. I kind of like the chunky analog stuff mixed with future stuff. So I do think cell phones exist, but people might also still use payphones because they might still be a more secure way. The drones, which we'll get to later, you can use them further than 1,000 feet or meters. I can't remember which 1,000 something.
I think it's meters.
But you can use them outside that. However, it's basically lost by the time you do that in terms of other people easily able to hack it or take control of it. So you want to keep your drone within like a kilometer or a mile. I can't remember what so there's still something like that where it's like, even though wireless stuff, you can make it go further, but you're kind of being an idiot unless you're like in the middle of the desert and like there's no way he's gonna hack it. But you don't want a drone going across the city.
It says something too where like things are not as meticulously logged as they are in real life. Like there's no like, no one like I mean, I live in the US, so like the fucking CIA is not logging everything that everyone does all the time in this setting because there's no central authority that's that strong. And like it gives you, it's like, hey, you need to have these narrative reasons to allow your players to do shit. Otherwise you end up in that thing where it's like, well, I mean, reasonably somebody will find you and everything you do is like, sorry, like someone's gonna figure it out. Like, fuck you. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, me too.
To get back at where we are, I guess. So Hacker, it talks about giving you subjects and verbs. We'll get to how the cyberspace stuff works later. It's a pretty neat system.
I
liked what I saw of that. Hard to kill. The classic. You get more hit points. The most boring pick of all. I am totally fine with people taking this and its equivalent, Die Hard and Worlds Outnumber, but goddamn is it boring.
It is. It's also even better in this. Turning your base trauma target, which we'll get into later, from a 6 to a 7 is
that's
genuinely
good,
solid. Because anything that uses a D6 trauma die
which is like over half the weapons.
Yeah, so there's no point even rolling against somebody with this. So
Killing Blow is half of the warrior from Worlds Without Number.
Yeah.
Masterful Expertise is...
Oh, actually, I'm wrong. Sorry, because look at Killing Blow. Any trauma die you roll gains a +1 bonus. So I mean, if you do have any PvP and somebody does have a D6 trauma die against somebody with hard to kill, they could actually technically hit them if they roll a 6.
Yeah, though I don't think you ever. Yeah, I guess only if you have PvP.
Yeah,
because I don't think. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think you can explicitly give. We'll get to that when we get to like
there might be
NPCs
some
thing.
Yeah, there might be some cyber that gives you a +1 to that.
There is, yeah. They have a big list of we'll get to it.
Yeah.
Get out of ourselves.
Yeah, there's a lot to go over.
Masterful Expertise is the full expert ability from Worlds Without Number. You get to reroll any non-combat skill failure once per scene. On target is the warrior attack progression. You roll your level. So the basic attack progression for everybody in this is half level attack bonus. So +5 is normally the highest you can get. Prodigy is just set a skill to 18. Also, you get a +3 modifier instead of a +2.
Yeah. So yeah, you can't do that for Constitution, and you can't take that if you benefit from the underdog rule. Which
that would be
obviously
some bullshit.
Yeah, I'm an underdog prodigy. Yeah.
Sure you are.
Okay, buddy.
Yeah. Operator's Fortune is just you're lucky. You just get to roll. If you fail, you don't get to reroll. You get to do like a luck check more or less, and you have like a 80% chance.
Yeah.
Of succeeding, like, which is really good. Only on a 1 do you fail.
I like that awesome. One. Big main character energy for that one.
It is once per game session, so it's not. I mean, if it was once per scene, it would actually be absurd. You get to like avert some. This I think is another one where you could mitigate like a run-ending failure, right? Where it's like, oh, if we fail this, like, there's no reasonable way in this game. It's provided us a narrative way out of here. Like,
I do think. For an edge, this one is a little bit weak in my opinion. I think if it was once per game session, and you either choose to avert it, or you can roll to try and get a 6 to make it land on an enemy, would be better, because only once per session, and then it might just not do anything on a, 20% chance, is kind of rough. This might work better as a foci, or just make it a bit stronger. Not just saying that, like, right away change it, but I do think this one is not... It's one I like because it's fun, but I might go for other ones over this one if I'm making a character.
I definitely got that, like... I thought the same. This is one of those ones classically where if it's like a once a session thing, it's a lot stronger the longer the game you play. Like, I would not take this in a one shot.
Yes.
Like, that's... You're just sitting there like, oh boy, can't wait to use this on a roll and have something come up later that's way worse. Like,
yeah, that's true. For like a weekly campaign, having this once per game session is not too bad. It's just the once per... I would say maybe making it either twice per game session could be fun. I don't know. It's tough. It's This
would be one where I'm like, if I had an underdog, I would be tempted to take this as like my third edge.
Yeah, at level 5.
It's got real like second or third edge kind of energy to how powerful it is.
Real sloppy seconds edge.
I'll just finish off these last couple. So yeah, Veteran's Luck is the warrior's full class ability where you get to change an enemy hit to a miss or your miss to a hit once per scene. It can also be applied to mounted weapons that you're firing, which is fun. But like you can't remove environmental damage or something like that. Voice of the People is like the most, I mean, next to Hacker and Wired is like the most this game specifically one, where you get 2 levels in the pop idol focus and you get another friend contact, which is somebody who will actually do something dangerous for you. I don't think we mentioned the difference. Like, acquaintances are people you know who you can reliably contact, but they won't do anything like illegal for you. They'll do like a baseline stuff. Like they are a
or if they will do something illegal, they need to be paid really well.
Right. Whereas a friend will be like, sure, yeah, I'll do this one. I mean, they might never talk to you again after that if it ends up going really badly, but they will do something like that puts them on the line.
More at risk, This is a good one if you are going to take the pop out focus anyway. This is not a bad one just to go for that.
You don't have to take it then. And the last one, I made a one-shot character, and this is one of my edges, which is Wired, which is that you get to start with $200,000 of new or secondhand cyber, which is Cyberware. That's pretty strong. It's about as strong as the rest of the edges. You can get a lot of shit for $200,000. You have to pay to maintain it every month, which is not great.
Though you do get 2 free months of maintenance with this edge.
That's true. So that you would be turbo fucked if you did not get 2 free months of maintenance, because you're on average, I think, only supposed to be making like a couple grand a mission.
Yeah, level 1 missions is 10K split between the whole party, not per person.
Yeah, and then I think on average, you're also supposed to have like up to I really like this actually, and it'll come up later maybe, but it's very explicit about like, you know, about how much a party should get each mission. And there is also an explicit thing which is kind of implicit in a lot of old dungeon design where it's like, roll on this. There is also 50, 100, 150, or 200% of that in optional loot that they can pick up, which I really like. Them being like, hey, put other stuff for you. Characters. People want to pick shit up and take shit. Give them some money for it. Don't just like, oh, you pick up like it's an apple.
Yeah, no,
like it's a sword.
And in this, it even makes even more sense in a lot of other genres, because if you're going into like an office building, the exec might have a safe behind a painting. You take that painting off, just crack in, grab a few sticks full of like data, or straight up just cash.
Yeah,
and they're good.
Get like you're breaking into a bio lab and there's a fucking brand new boxed up piece of cyberware there that's worth, you know.
Or exactly, or some fucking like, you know, limited edition pen that somebody has. Just, you can do a lot of stuff that like modern day, like a comic book that somebody has, where it's like, what the hell, this guy, you know, a high end collector of certain things. So many people are just gonna be used to like having golden rings and jewelry and stuff that also work. But I think throwing in stuff that we just have in the modern world is so easy just to take from our life into the cyberpunk world.
Yeah, you don't have to think that hard about it, right?
Yeah,
like it's just there's valuable shit everywhere.
Yeah. Dude, this guy's got a sick gaming PC. He just rips it out of the wall.
You like running away with like a 5 encumbrance gaming PC. Yeah.
Well, one time I wasn't here for this session, but in one of Jack's games many moons ago, we were playing a game where there was an ebony table in the room, and one of the players was like, "Whoa, hold up, guys. You know how much a fucking ebony, like, dining table, like a conference table goes for? Let's fucking screw the rest of it. Let's bring this back to town." And, like, didn't they, like, throughout that just have to find ways, basically just, like, shift it around?
Like, shove it into a magic elevator that could barely fit 2 people in it. And, like, because they were like, I was like, yeah, there's, like, a big wooden table in this room. And they're like, what's it made out of? I was like, and the first wood that came to mind was ebony. And they're like, that's worth so much money. And, yeah, it proceeded to be, like, an hour of them, like, I forced them to make check because I was like, this is weird and awkward. So like, and like carrying this thing out, and then like 2 of the players had to go back and like to town to rent like a horse and cart to pick the table up and bring it back.
which is so funny because I don't remember much else from that. I wasn't even there for that session. I remember that story because it's so fucking funny. So having fun stuff like that, as I know that was not intentional on your part, it just worked out that way. But yeah, you can do a lot of fun stuff like that.
So for Wired, like we were saying, you get a bunch of money in Cyberware. Cyberware can be super fucking strong, especially 200k worth of it. It's yet another class of stuff that a lot of cases gives you rerolls and big bonuses to things.
Yeah, and we'll get
it also does a thing which I really like, which is that, hey, this is like an edge, like a core aspect of your character that is functionally, here's a big pile of money. Like, and that is it. Like, I mean, there's rolls that you would normally have to make to like get it installed and stuff that may fail, whatever.
Yeah.
But giving a character a big pile of money doesn't mean as much when a character's level 8 and can go get a big pile of money from something. So the skill explicitly is like, hey, you can buy this edge out for double the value you paid and pick a new one, which I really like. Because, I mean, I like seeing games that give money sinks for high-level characters, because it's always a problem, like, in some games where it's like, what the fuck do we spend this on? And, like, what are you going to do in a Cyberpunk game? You don't go build a fucking castle.
Exactly.
Maybe you do. I don't know. But
yeah, like... I mean, I guess if it's one of those tough things is you might have a group that has fun stuff in mind, but they don't necessarily know how to do it. Because a lot of people who plays games might just think every session we show up, then we just go do the dungeon or the mission that the GM gives us. We're not going to have too much of our own, like, agency, but like even making like a bar or anything. But yeah, no, if you have to pay 400k just to get this edge back and you can put into something else, I think that's really cool. And also the having that maintenance every month does give you that extra thing, like you said, where I have to pay off my fucking cyber. You might do the thing where it's like, oh yeah, you guys get this really good cyber. There's a subscription on top of that maintenance that they have to pay every month of this corp that they got from, because it's the only corp that actually sells this gear in your world. Which just gives them an inherent reason to keep adventuring or cyberpunking, or whatever you'd call it.
We're on to foci next. Focuses. It's foci in here, but I don't. Some people probably think we sound like weirdos when we say that. There's a fun chart here that I appreciate. That's because you get a new focus. You get 2 at the beginning, and then you get a level 2,
Yeah, you level 2 focus.
4,
5,
7 or
7,
something
and
like
10.
that. Yeah. Oh, one more thing about edges. You get a third edge at level 5, and that's the only other one that you get.
Yeah.
Or I guess a fourth one if you're underdog rule.
An underdog, bro.
Yeah. But so some of the foci in this game give you stuff like physically, like, hey, you took the drone pilot one, you get a drone like with this. Or you took the driver one, you get a vehicle with this. You took, I don't think any of them give you cyberware, but like, and it gives you a fun little chart that's like, hey, if you're level like 7, like you give them a lot higher budget for what they get to take, because like, man, it would suck if you took this focus at level 7, where like the budget for it is 60,000 at level 7. It's a lot less useful if it's 5,000.
Yeah.
Like, so I appreciate that. Again, like the foci and the abilities that have a numeric value tied to them, that it's not like a fixed number, and it's not, it doesn't become irrelevant.
Yeah, just 1 second, Jack. Yeah, Green, I don't know if either of us said you get 2, but we were just saying, like, if you start at level 2, then you would have 2 foci, so you get another foci at level 2. But if we said 2 foci, yeah, no, we meant you get 2 edges at level 1 and 1 foci starting off. And then there's more after that through the levels.
Yeah.
I don't know how much we need to go over this too much. We can go over some of the new ones, but like there's a lot here, like Alert, Arms Master, Assassin.
A lot of these are the same.
As rolls that number and stars. So Ace Driver, you a real good boy at driving and fixing your vehicles, and you get the money stuff for that.
It also, I think pretty much all the ones that give you like a thing do this, which is like, this gives you the ability to replace stuff without having to pay for all of it. Like, it's not just like, ooh, wow, you real good drive, go you. It's like, you get a thing, and also if that thing gets destroyed, it doesn't immediately mean that you've removed a big part of this this ability that you got. Yeah,
well, like even at level 2, the speed of a vehicle you drive is increased by 1 point. Just like, so you're just a better driver, like base. Even if you lose your vehicle, you're still like good on those things. And I do like that at a rate of 10k per week is actually pretty decent.
Yeah,
especially after you watch shootouts.
You get this also gives a reroll on a skill check related to vehicle driving or maintenance and repair.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of rerolls thrown in here. Way more than World's that number. All natural is the one.
One of the rare only level 1 ones.
Yeah,
as it only has 1 level, not that you have to take it level 1.
It's also like if you're mixing stuff from other games, this is not allowed. You cannot take this because you get any skill as a bonus skill. You pick an attribute, increase the modifier by +1. You can take 4 more at 4 other levels. You also get to increase other attribute modifiers by +1, which is ridiculous.
Yeah,
you also never take major injuries, which we'll get to, but are really bad.
Wow, that's really good. Well, you can still suffer traumatic hits. Never. Oh my god, that's really good. Yeah, so all natural's really good, and I think that can also add to some roleplay capabilities, because just saying, I don't go for that stuff, and not really having a mechanical bonus to that is less cool than actually having something that makes it pretty good. Arms Master, Assassin, Authority, all in the last games, so we're not going to need to really go over those too much. Close Combatant as well. Next one is Cyberdock, which is a new one. You gain fix and heal as bonus skills. That's actually also really good.
Yeah, because you need both of those to Cyberdock. Like straight up is you cannot do any cyberware maintenance or installation without fix and heal at 0, which is rough.
You start to play the Cyberdock kit, and you can implant cyberware even if your heal skill is level 0. Also very good, because I think you need heal 1 to do that stuff usually. You gain a +2 bonus on all cyber implant surgery skill checks. Also, okay, wow, this is fantastic for like.
It's a bit of like an NPC kind of focus usually, but if you wanted to make a character whose thing was like you're the doctor for the group, then this is really good.
I think it's good to have these, because if you do have players who do, even though they would be NPCs, they're like, yeah, but like there's that character in like Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and I want to sort of be that kind of person.
Yeah, or you just have somebody who wants to play support.
Exactly.
I had a character in my home group for a number of years that she just really liked to play healers and support, and I was like, all right, that's fine. Like, thankfully most games actually provide that. But
exactly.
You know what I did notice?
Yeah.
There's not an equivalent to. Is there in here? No, there's no polymath in this.
No.
That would be way too good in this game, I feel like.
I think that would have to be an edge. If that was a thing, I think it would
be a really strong edge.
Yeah.
Polymath, for anyone unfamiliar, it was an edge that was exclusive to full experts.
No, partial
experts. That number.
Partial experts can take it too.
Oh, could they? Okay, yeah. It let you treat every single non-combat skill as level 0, which is really like that would make the Cyberdock
Yeah.
focus here a lot less good.
At, is level 2 I don't know if anybody in the chat can corroborate this. At level 2 polymath, does
I
it
think
actually
it's
make it
treated
level
as a 1.
Yeah, which
I think so, yeah.
is so fucking good. Especially if you're doing a full extra and you mix that with being able to re-roll once we're seeing non-combat skills. Like, you're basically good at everything.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of just the, like, I don't know if you think about like 3.x games where it's just here we're just shitting out skill points on you every level. Put skill ranks and everything.
Deadeye's another game, so is Diplomat. So the next one is Drone Pilot, which again sort of like Cyberduck or the Ace Pilot. Pretty self-explanatory, but this one also gives you gain drive and fixes bonus skills. Acquire start play with a remote control unit cyber system and its installation. You have the whole drone stuff.
Oh, that one, level 2 of that is very good because it gives you an extra main action to pilot drones.
Yeah.
Which usually in this game, the way it would work, it's either you or the drone. Like, you use a move action to move the drone, you use your main action to make the drone attack.
Yeah.
So having an extra one's good. I didn't mention it, but for the hacker edge, it gives you an extra main action when you're hacking, like just to hack. This game doesn't do that stupid thing that like a lot of, I think Cyberpunk does this. I know that Shadowrun does it, where it's like several cyberspace rounds for every real world round, which is just like yuck. No. It just gives you, it's like, hey, you can do more stuff because this is happening really quickly.
That works fine in a computer game like the Shadowrun games, but in an RPG, that is too much.
If you're playing with other people, it's just like, this person gets 3/4 of my time. The rest of you get a quarter.
And it's also not rules light when it comes to fucking Shadowrun.
No.
The other thing too, just to go back to what you said with the drone though, with the assume command, is that I believe you can also have the drone do its own action so that you keep your action, but if you command it, you give it a bonus to everything you do. If I could be wrong on that, but I do know
you have to have they're like routines or something.
Yeah, you can give it a routine that it does, and I think it just does its base. Whereas if you control it, you can do what you want with it, and you also give it a bonus.
Those are also kind of expensive, and depending on the drone, you may not be able to install them. I forget what the actual thing is called, but it has like a assume control kill is like the one where it's like, hey, you can tell it to attack somebody, and then it will just do that. Very basically. Until you tell it to do something else.
The next one is Expert Programmer. I think when I made that hacker guy on stream, I might do another character creation stream, but that one I think I took Expert Programmer, 2 levels of it for that. But yeah, you gain program as a bonus skill. You can create and maintain an additional number of program elements equal to your character level +2. It's really good. Split among verbs and subjects as you see fit, as explained on page 96, which we'll get to when we go over the hacking rules.
I will say, I appreciate that a lot of games don't do this, that when he brings up a concept that has not been introduced yet, it's like, hey, this is on this page. Like, if you want to read ahead, flip to 96 to see the hacking rules.
Which is very helpful, because as much as I do love Kevin Crawford's books, the fact that he does full blocks of text can sometimes make my eyes glaze over or find it hard to find things. So if you do have that there, it makes it a lot easier to know just what page to go to, and I can find it from there. But yeah, this is about the programs, because you can make your own programs in this game, or you can buy programs, which we'll again get to in the hacking section. So this is pretty good for that. If you're, again, sort of like Cyberduck, if you want to be your own kind of NPC with certain things, because you can actually use these on jobs. Healer is in the other games. Henchkeeper is also in the other games, both self-explanatory. Many Faces is new.
That one's fun.
That one is
another
very
one
fun.
Where like this could, in like a less focused game, could be useless, but in this game it's inherently useful. It just lets you have alternate identities that are straight up just, you could be multiple people.
And gives you a bonus skill and sneak as well, which makes sense.
And if the identities get burned, you can replace them. So it's good at letting you maintain that ability, even if, whatever the thing it gives you gets fucked up.
Well, this is such a fun one for so many games where you can have somebody, if you're doing like a sort of heist or incursion mission where it's not just breaking in, but you actually have to do some level of social play, having a guy come in as somebody else or a new corpo or whatever, or a gang member, I think that those will be inherently fun RP sessions of them pretending to be somebody else, going to like the front desk or going into like a gang meeting. Pop Idol, which we mentioned earlier, there is a edge that can give you both of these levels in that for free, plus the friend. This one is very much going after the Rocker Boy class that you have in Cyberpunk. Game perform as a bonus skill once per game week with an hour or so of messaging. You can mobilize about 100 of your fans to perform some act of your choice, provided it's no more than mildly criminal or slightly dangerous. Flash mobs, getaway drivers, scouting reports, tailing people, or instant parties might all qualify as services. Your fans don't have any special skills, but they'll do anything ordinary workers or civilians could do. If you mobilize them for donations or merch purchases, you get $1,000 per character level, doubled at 5th level, and quadrupled at 10th. You can't mobilize them to buy your content more than once per month. So you could just be a Twitch streamer.
Like, all right, we're doing a subscribe-a-thon.
Yeah, we're doing a subscribe-a-thon.
And level 2 makes it so you get 100 fans per character level, which is way too many people.
That's so many.
And they will do illegal shit for you. Like, they will, like... Yeah. I mean, they could also all get arrested, which is not great, but...
but fuck them. Your charisma modifier increases by +1 to a maximum of +2. That's also very good. That's another part of level 2. Roamer is also a new one. Do you want to go over that one?
Yeah, this one's like... this is, I think, the one that could... it's still useful, but it's like essentially, hey, you're good at doing the stuff that's kind of in between the cities and moving around, I guess. I guess this is pretty good.
It does give you survive and drive, so that's nice.
Yeah, and it gives you a vehicle. You get conversational fluency in all languages, which may or may not be important depending on what kind of game you're in. And then, you can... get a reroll at level 2 for anything related to traveling or vehicle operation. Again, like following our trend of lots of things giving rerolls. So safe haven's also new. You can you get sneak as a bonus. Pretty much every focus gets you a bonus skill. You can spend a week and find or arrange a safe house, which is really fun, as well as get like a local doctor or cyberdoc on call for you. So like this is, again, if you wanted to play like the kind of facey sort of plan character, this would be a good one to take. I like those characters in like Forge in the Dark games. I tend to gravitate towards those because it's fun to be able to influence the narrative. And this is kind of like, it's cool. It also is our first mention of the heat mechanic, which we'll get to a lot later, which is also something that I like that is borrowed from more narrative, like heist-based games.
And also more of a sandbox campaign. I wouldn't worry if you're only doing like a 1 or 3 shot. I wouldn't really worry about heat unless you're gonna.
It might come up still. If you're gonna do more than one session, I would say it's gonna come up. But then level 2 is just it's actively protected by the authorities or somebody. And they'll defend it for you.
And by authorities, they mean anybody. Local authorities would be like gang members, paid off cops, or cooperative corp security. So it doesn't have to be necessarily like city cops. But and the other ones are Shocking Assault, Sniper's Eye, Specialist, and Tinker, which are all in the last one. So we don't really need to go over those. Unarmed Combatant
also is it's nice that all of these games make it viable to play somebody. Fucking camera, god damn it.
It's on.
I think it's because I'm like the same color as the wall.
Yeah, so it's like where are you?
Unarmed Combatant, it's nice that all these games let you viably play like a monk type character, which this and All Natural would go very well with something that's in the deluxe part of the book that we'll get to. Unique Gift has been in all the games where it's just like work with your GM to give you something very good.
That's
like,
akin to a
cool idea.
Yeah.
You have a neat idea that's not in here? Cool. Like, let's work it out.
Yeah. Unregistered is cool.
Go for it.
If taken with... Actually, interesting. Yeah. So whether by unrecorded birth, database corruption, or sheer luck, you simply do not exist in any government or corporate database.
You're sinless.
You're sinless, essentially.
Shadow...
It's funny. I'm playing Shadowrun Hong Kong again, and I just got... like, it's pretty early on, but I'm sinless now on that. If taken with the many faces foci, your own identity is lost, but you can create other for your own uses. That's really... But essentially, you have no corporate or government database records on you, so that's just a fun one. That's a big part of your world because it might not.
It also makes it so you can't use banks or own property, which is like kind of I mean, it's not really a problem in this game because you're implied to be playing somebody who's a mercenary more or less. But
I mean, it is good because you could be somebody who's trying to be sort of somewhat legit or have a part of you that's not known, but this just stops you from being able to do any of that. So, which I think is good. I do like when games give you something that's really cool for whatever reason that you might have it, but also gives you the realistic negatives to choosing that choice.
Right.
So somebody else is going to have to own your house probably if you. But that's all the foci, right?
Yeah, Whirlwind Assault, but that's from the old game.
Exactly.
That's from World's That Number as well. You get to make an attack against everybody you can reach. Yeah, and then we get on to our hit points, attack bonus, and saves. Unless you take the edge that gives you more hit points per level. Everyone has a d6 hit points per level. You modify by Constitution modifier. Your attack bonus is half level, so +5 is as high as you can get.
Unless you take the on-target attack bonus. So this table is very good just to go to.
I like that table.
I like it a lot. It gives you all the things you need to know, and then
it includes. I like that it includes the progression for the 2 things that can modify it. That's really nice.
It's very good.
And saves are saves. They're like
It's
20 minus level plus 4. Like
Yeah.
that's they always are.
It's 16 minus level, and then plus the attributes. That's it. And then you have your starting gear, which again, yeah, gunslinger, tech, face, badlander, medic, and hacker. So they all sort of just have the starting gear that you might want. I think you can roll for money instead, right?
So you get $500, and then you get to choose one individual item worth up to 1,000.
Okay, cool.
So if you want to have like a really good gun or a nice suit of armor or something, you can't really get cyberware with $1,000 or like deck stuff. Really, you may be able to get like a program.
Well, also at level 1, I don't think you can get cyber unless you take the wired trait. I think you need to do if you want cyber at level 1, you need to take the wired.
It's too expensive. You can't afford it.
Yeah,
like
so
but these are just some nice packages. I think in almost all of these, it's either the armor or the pistol or the weapon that is the expensive thing, because weapons are fairly expensive.
But yeah, bonus skill weapon. We'll get into the weapons and armor when we go over the combat stuff, because that all ties in together as to how things are different.
It's a little different in this game, actually.
Yeah, you got your languages, because you might have a really diverse cyberpunk world. You have like Chinese, Japanese, English, German, whatever, or common, whatever. I don't know what you're mixing into your game. Yeah.
But you get extra fluencies depending on and Connect and shit.
There's also sample cyberware packages for people who do take the wired edge and don't want to go through, which I don't know why you take the wired edge and not want to at least look through all the cool things you can take.
It can at least give you a baseline for what you can expect to be able to afford, which is nice. You, as a GM, wanted to, I don't know why you would do this, if you wanted to make a leveled NPC that follows the player rules, which I'm fairly certain the game advises you to not do, you could do this as well, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, and one thing, we didn't mention this with the wired stuff, but the only difference between secondhand cyber and new cyber is that secondhand cyber is half the cost, and you also have to roll on the, I forget what, it's not a Quarks table.
It is a defect.
Yeah, defect. Is that what it is? Yeah.
Table.
Some sort of table where there might be something weird with it, which could be anything from costing more system strain to fucking up at RAM times. There's a few different things it could be.
And that's character creation. Also, sorry, I'm very sniffly today. I live in a part of the country where all the trees want to fuck all the time. And so like 10 months a year, we just have terrible pollen. That's a thing I learned recently, where like they used to almost exclusively plant male trees because it makes it so you don't get like pollinated tree, or you don't get like trees growing everywhere. So if you wanted to like just have just the trees you planted with like you're not constantly weeding saplings, they just planted male trees. And what that means is that all the trees, they know that like however through whatever feedback loop that they're not pollinating female trees, and so they produce more pollen.
Oh god.
So now it's like we've just made allergen zones for everyone.
Pretty much. Actually, is there a thing on cyborgs? I mean, I guess cyber would make you a cyborg.
Yeah, you can. Well, there is actually.
There is actually a cyborg thing.
We'll get to that in the cyber.
That's later.
Thing.
Okay.
One of the most expensive things. I think it's actually the single most expensive thing in the game. You can get a full body replacement.
Right.
It's like $5 million.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, wait. Isn't it like $6 million because it's the $6 million man joke?
It might be.
Isn't that what he did? Yeah.
It might be.
Because I remember somebody complaining, being like,
thing.
"Actually, if you look at the math, this makes no sense." It's like it's a fucking joke. It's fine.
It's also so expensive. It is $6 million. Yeah.
Yeah.
The second most expensive piece of cyberware I think is 100,000, and that is $6 million. Oh, I didn't even realize it was a fucking $6 million man joke. God damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll skip past the skill checks and saving throws. They're the same as other ones. You
roll over on a saving throw. A skill check, you roll over. It's 2d6. The normal skill check is 6. Every 2 increases the difficulty. A round is 6 seconds. Only call for a check when it's interesting and has a chance of failure. Fucking yada yada yada.
Exactly. So we'll just go to combat, which might make us jump around a bit if we need to go to the armor and weapons stuff. Combat, for the most part, acts the same as the other games. You roll a d8 plus your dexterity on one side, and the other side rolls d8, the flat d8 for NPCs. Also, if you have the alert trait, obviously you add that as well. And
I realized when I was reading this, that I had to go pull up my Worlds of that Number book and be like, oh my god, I always call for d6 dexterity.
Oh, really? That's funny.
I've been fucking this up forever.
I mean, the d6 is the classic one. I do like d8 just for the expanded number range.
Right.
Because if
especially if you wanted to roll individual initiative, you probably want to use a d8.
Yeah, if you match, then the players go first. So I think having that extra 2 numbers just makes it still fair whether the PCs are still have the advantage, but it makes it a little bit bigger.
As with a lot of the sections in this game, there is like a really frank like, hey, like this is the intent, this is how this is intended to fit in the game, and so be aware of it. Where he's like, hey, people die when you get in combat, and PCs can die very easily at low levels, and if they murder a bunch of people, someone is going to care. They're not just going to be able to sweep it under the rug. So, you know, make them think about whether they want to get into combat or not.
Yeah, especially depending on who you kill, too. And also, I will say this, maybe I'm wrong because of the stuff you do get. Combat in Worlds Without Number and Stars Without Number is already scary as fuck, and it's way fucking scarier in this. The trauma die rules that we're gonna get into, so terrifying.
There's no crits in this game, just like Worlds Without Number. There's not even an optional crit rule. It's just like, if you roll a 20, there's almost no way you don't hit something, because it's very hard to get an AC that's up that high. But yeah, there's basic cover and position rules, which is a nice little table that's like, hey, these are all the plausible modifiers you're really going to need for
that's nice. I actually missed that. It's actually really good to have.
Combat. Yeah. I think it's also in the back. No, it's not. Okay. There's like, technically, as far as everyone is concerned, no GM screen for Worlds Without Number. It was released with a Kickstarter and then never released. And I can only assume that Kevin Crawford lost the files and didn't release it. Because like, there's no reason that it shouldn't exist somewhere. But there's only in the back here. You get some nice tables, which are this is just like the purchase tables, more or less. But yeah, this is a nice little table. It talks about shock.
I don't know if that's going to be in the... Sorry, if anybody gets this on print on demand, I don't know if that table in the back will be there, because I think Tim... I have the offset print of Worlds Without Number, which also has that, and Tim has the drive-thru RPG one, and I can't remember, maybe he can let me know if anybody in the chat has the pod version, but I don't know if the back will have that. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know if you can do end paper stuff.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure they don't.
But yeah, so there's this nice little covered position table, which is probably, if you run this game, I would advise having that at hand.
Yeah, Mid says they don't. Thank you, Mid. Yeah, I didn't think they did.
Yeah. Rules for shock damage. Again, if you're unfamiliar with these games, shock is weapons will have a shock rating, which is an amount of damage and an AC. And assuming they have that rating, if the enemy has that or lower AC, I think it's always that or lower, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with hits. Then they take that damage even on a miss.
Yeah, and it's only melee. You can't do less than that damage. So if your shock is 3 with that weapon and you roll a 1 damage, you do 3 damage.
A rule that is so easy to forget, but is very, very important.
It changes the game
a lot less disappointing. Yeah, it does. It can totally change games, because if you average 3 shock damage, that's like you're doing almost an average hit die worth of damage automatically to anybody with that low of
absolutely.
AC.
Yeah, one thing I'll say to anybody, because I've brought this up before and I'll do it when I do an episode on it. If you are converting Worlds Without Number or this to anything that does not have shock, you gotta keep that in mind, because if your enemies aren't doing shock on them, which is totally fine if you want to keep things simple, I don't think that's a bad design choice. Just make sure you give them extra health or some extra damage or something, because characters, especially ones who take the thing where they just treat everybody as they can hit their shock, will just churn through. Yeah, they will just churn through enemies so easily. Dual wielding weapons, which is the same as other ones. Dual wielding grants a +2 damage bonus on all hits on a target within range of both weapons. If using a knife and gun, this means for foes in melee range, while dual pistols could get the bonus in anyone in range of the guns. And take a -1 to hit, though. Yeah.
I will say that it would make way more sense to dual wield in this than it would in most other games. Yeah. I mean, if you want to do the neat thing where you're fucking Legolas swinging 2 swords around in Worlds Without Number, that's fine. But like carrying a knife and a pistol in a cyberpunk setting makes way more sense than like, I don't know, almost any other.
Yeah, I'm just imagining somebody role playing as like a 40k like commissar, where they have like a chainsword in one hand, pistol in the other.
Right. And then you get shot from like 100 meters away.
Yeah, because there's a guy who's
pistol's not very good on an actual battlefield.
Yeah, somebody just fires a grenade launcher at you.
Execution attacks return, which are if you have a minute to set up an attack, they like straight up make a save versus death.
Yeah.
Which is nice. That I think honestly might come up more in this game than it would in like Worlds Without Number,
because you
might
have
be setting up an assassination on somebody.
Yeah. Okay, so the real thing that's different here are the traumatic hits and trauma targets. I don't know if you want to explain, or if you want me to.
I mean, I can do it if you want me to.
Go for it. You better explain stuff. Give it the pressure on.
Thank you. So everybody has a trauma target, which is a number. It's by standard, it's 6. There are edges that can change it. I think there was a focus that can change it. Maybe there's cyberware that changes your trauma target as well as armor. It's usually like a +1. Something will give you, and it stacks. Every weapon on a hit, you always roll the trauma die, and that is it's usually, I'd say for most weapons, it's a D6.
Yeah, it goes up to a D12 is the highest, I think.
It can, yeah. For heavy weapons, it'll be up to a D12. And if you hit the trauma target or over with the trauma die, it multiplies the damage that you do based on the weapon. So for most people, if they're unaugmented enemies, they could technically get a score. You could technically score a traumatic hit on them with any weapon. So like you roll your 1d8 pistol. They have a trauma target of 6. You hit them, you roll a 6. It multiplies it by like 3.
Yeah.
So you do 3d8 damage, which is ridiculous.
Actually, no, it's worse than that because it's not 3d8. It's literally whatever you roll times.
Oh, you take
3.
the damage and you multiply it by.
So 3, yeah, so if you have a knife and you stab somebody and you roll and you got 5 damage total and you hit their trauma, you do 15 damage, which for most characters that you're going to be coming across, you will just fucking stab the shit out of them.
I mean, that again, on average, you say like what, 4.5 or 3.5 is the average on a D6, right? That on average, you kill that would kill a 4 hit die like enemy.
So
and
that
we're making up the multipliers and damage numbers right now, but that's like broadly how it works.
That's how it works.
Also, if you go down on a round where you took that hit, you will take you have to roll the mortal wounds table, which can be really debilitating. So yeah, if you suffer a traumatic hit, and if it downs you, or if other damage on that round downs you, you then suffer a major injury, and that table's in a few pages. That can be anything from like you lucked out and it's just a flesh wound to like it destroys your arm or your leg or the other arm, or the other leg, or internal damage or brain damage, or instantly kills you, which is I think the only way outside of being like eviscerated by an explosion that you can insta-die as a PC.
Yeah, and we're just gonna go back 1 second there, Jex. I think Steve,
because it's the healing and stuff is right before that.
Steve. Oh no, sorry, I meant in terms of what we're talking about, because Steve's asking to explain shock since it's so quick and easy.
I did that.
Yeah,
Steve.
I know. I was gonna say Jack did, but just to for any melee weapons, like pretty much all of them, there is just a shock, and it has a modifier where if you hit a certain AC, you just do a base amount of damage if you miss. So basically, the whole reason why it exists is we've all gone into games where people do I roll, I miss, I roll, I miss, and the game goes like 3 rounds over what it should because nobody's actually hitting. This is meant to mitigate that, at least for the most part. So essentially, yeah, if you have like a sword, it'll do like, I don't know, if somebody has an AC of 13, you do 2 damage to them if they have AC 13 or less. You might have foci or other things that change that. There's one is Shocking Assault that changes everybody's AC or everybody's shock essentially to being a 10 for you. So you basically just hit everybody with your shock, no matter what. If they can be hurt by shock, some people can't.
Yeah.
And that's essentially shock.
I will also say, so yeah, like Alex said, there are very few, if any, ranged weapons that do shock damage, because what is a miss? A miss on a gun is a miss. Mm-hmm. Not like a deflection or something.
Yes. And also Green's mentioning we should mention how healing or how health works when you roll levels. Yeah, it works the same as it does in the air games. Yeah, if you basically have to re-roll all your dice every level. If you get the same amount or less, your hit points just go up by 1. If you get above your current hit points, that is your new hit point total. Yeah,
in theory, it's less swingy as you go on than just rolling your new hit points every level. As a result, it's still just as swingy in the first few levels, like 2 or 3. So you can start out with really low number of hit points relatively easily in like the first 2 levels. But then as you get, I would say even once you get to level 3, you're going to at least average a decent number of hit points.
Yeah.
Also, to point something out, I guess we'll get to it, but melee AC in this game is not high. Mm-hmm. It's generally, because in Worlds of That Number, it really wasn't that hard to be able to ignore most shock. Like you could get an AC 16 relatively easily, and most weapons don't shock higher than a 15. Yeah.
And if you have a shield, it can stop the first shock in a round.
Yeah, which is still the case here.
But how many people are going to be running around with shields though, right?
Yeah. Most of the armor in this game, like going up to all of the normal armor, none of it has a higher base melee AC than 15. Mm-hmm. So unless you're applying Dex mod to it, if you have like a 15 shock weapon, you can shock almost anyone any turn. So shock is even more dangerous and less likely to be mitigated than it was in Worlds That Number.
Yeah, which is really good because I still think overall range weapons are king. So if you can get up to somebody in melee before they can kill you, that's usually pretty good. But yeah, I think that's a
It
good
keeps
balance.
melee relevant.
It keeps
well,
melee
doing
relevant, which you
guaranteed
want.
damage.
Yeah, just because we didn't mention that because we're probably gonna get to it in a little bit. But yeah, you have melee AC and ranged AC, which is different than the other games. That's one of the ways that things could be a little bit harder to convert. I think in the section on converting, that's covered though. So we can get to that later. And then I think just to keep going where we are, there's less lethal attacks, which is non-lethal. And obviously to use a weapon that makes sense, you can't less lethal somebody with a fucking gun to the, like a bullet to the head. So
you can buy less lethal bullets.
You can, yeah. But you can't just be like,
I choose to be less lethal with my normal bullets.
But yeah, attackers striking to subdue a target this way make their attacks normally, but do not roll the trauma die. Victims brought to 0 hit points this way are alive but unconscious, helpless, stunned, or otherwise incapacitated as the assailant wishes, which is the way I like to do less lethal. I actually do like that 5e does it this way, where it's just like, you just do the same attack, all that sort of stuff. As long as it's not like a gun or a spell, then you can just put them down, and I think that works. You just bonk them on the head real hard, and they're just going to have a concussion.
Yeah, and then we have the rest of our injury rules here. People who don't matter die at 0 hit points. PCs are mortally wounded at 0 hit points. And what that means is that you lay there dying for 6 rounds. Somebody needs to make a heal check with, I think it said explicitly enter Dex, but I don't know what the fuck else you'd make a heal check with.
Yeah.
Like as if you're doing like orthopedic surgery on somebody, you could do a strength heal or something.
We gotta do a root canal in the middle of this combat.
Down with like a hammer, like. But you have to make a heal check, and it starts at a difficulty 8, and it increases by what, 1?
By 1 for every round they're down. It goes up by 1.
Yeah, I know you die at the end of round 6.
Yeah.
So it gets progressively harder. It incentivizes you to get to stabilize people earlier because they can't. I mean, there are ways they can auto stabilize, but you have to purposefully purchase the things for it. And you can't just chain it. You can't have like 3 people try to stabilize you in 1 round. You get 1 shot per round, and if you fail, you fail. And you're also frail, though you can get rid of that a handful of ways, which means like you don't naturally heal without like a week in bed rest or something.
Basically, you're frail.
If you go down again, you instantly die.
Yeah. So if you go down again, they get you up, and then like there's a combat 10 minutes later in the next room, and you get fucking domed. You're gone for good.
Yeah. Which really, I like that. It makes you think. You can't just be fucking healed back up, even if you have the.
It really makes you think.
It really makes you think. The letter makes you think. First aid continue to try to heal a d6 hit points as far as I know. There's no like you can't just first aid somebody once, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the payoff is that you add a system strain to every time you do it. Which matters a lot more in this game because cyber affects your system strain.
It it raises your base.
Yeah.
So yeah, healing you can spend a minute. We'll get to minutes because it's actually there's a minutes as a not just like the concept but as like a time measurement for tracking means something in this game. But you can take a minute to cure someone of a d6 plus heal hit points. As long as you have heal skill, you can do this under no duress. It increases their system strain by 1. Your system strain is equal to your con. Some things can increase it. Once it's at 100, once it's maxed out, nothing that would normally increase it can be done to you. You just have to wait, and it goes down by 1 per day. I think you can increase to 2 per day with some certain things. Poisons and diseases do poison and disease things.
Usual shit. Like always, we don't need to cover too much. We already covered the major injuries earlier.
Getting major injuries in places where you have cyberware can damage or destroy it.
Yeah.
And it will require fixing, which can be quite expensive.
Yeah, 20% of the system's original cost of maintenance parts.
Which when it costs like 100K can be a lot.
Yep.
Can you imagine taking wired and then suffering a major injury and having to pay $20,000 to get your fucking 100K cyberware fixed?
Yeah, your whole job is just to eat them, which is the fun part. That feels very like Cowboy Bebop, where it's like we got like we just constantly
always out of money. Outlaw Star, same deal. Like you're just like, cool, we just made enough money to fix the damage to the ship that happened because we were trying to make money.
Vehicle combat. I will be honest, I kind of skipped over this part myself.
This will come up in this game. As opposed to Worlds Without Number, where you could feasibly do many campaigns without it coming up, it probably will come up.
And it probably should for fun. I mean, a getaway drive, like a real fast chase, is such a classic staple of these games where things go wrong. And I skipped over just because I was looking at a lot of other things, but I don't know if you looked through it. Does it work the same way as the other vehicle combats?
Yeah, it's broadly the same as in Stars and Worlds. You know, everyone gets to make actions. If you crash, it's very bad for everyone involved. Vehicles are typically immune to traumatic hits unless there's a weapon that's like a heavy weapon that specifically can do that. You can do ramming and stuff. It's more important in this because you have that archetype of the driver, and there are vehicle mods.
Yeah.
Vehicles, like, I mean, we'll get to it eventually, but like they have hard points and stuff for weapons.
Absolutely.
Yada,
And
yada.
if you're doing like some sort of like nomad game where, you know, you're doing like that, either a Mad
like
Max
you're doing
thing,
Mad Max,
or you're just caravanners that go between cities, and like that's going to come up all the time.
And then there's normal foot chases. They're solid chase rules. I like chase rules in games. They can add some more interesting encounters other than just like, cool, we shoot at them, or cool, I make a dex check and I catch them.
Yeah, this is also really nice because, so just the first part on the foot chase, the fleeing party runs, the group member with the best dex exert or con exert rolls a skill check. That's nice that they do the best and not the worst, even though the worst probably makes most sense that you'd stick at the pace of whoever's slowest, but at least that is nice. That means if you're putting points into exert or dex or con, whatever, that's nice that will pay off for these sorts of things.
Yeah, vehicle is pretty much the same thing. Then we get into character advancement. Experience is like you broadly are expected to get about 3 per session. That's it. There's a fast and slow leveling. If this is the same leveling pace from Worlds, I find it can be kind of fast at low levels, even with slow leveling. You can adjust it. It's not. I think most people tend to be more milestone-ish with it anyway. There is an optional table in here that is a straight up table for, if I remember correctly, for money. Like,
we actually add that into here. Okay, that's nice.
I believe it's in here somewhere. I don't remember where it is, but I think it's in the GM section.
Because I was using that for when I did the Temple of Elemental Evil game. I was using that link you sent me, and it wasn't bad, but it was a little bit rough with how it was laid out. But it worked. It worked totally fine.
I used that for my Ardenval game, and I found it worked well for that. It obviously, like, you can be kind of mean depending on what you consider bringing money back or bringing loot back, but I kind of like, in certain contexts, I think money for levels works.
I don't know if that's necessarily the best for this one all the time. It really depends on what kind of game you're doing. If you are doing like a straight up game where you have a home base and every session is you doing a different job, I think it works fine for that. If you're following more of a storyline with some sandbox elements, that might not work as well, and Milestone might work better, but
yeah, for sure. I actually think that's where it comes up when he's talking about like creating missions, and like there is recommendations for like how to change the amount of experience you get for a mission based on the length, or if they succeed, etc. So when you level up in this game, you get additional hit points, your saving throws go up, your attack bonus might go up, you get 3 skill points. The skills cost their level +1 to buy, and they have minimums. There are gates for how high your skills can be based on your level. There are some ways to get them over that. You can't partially buy skill levels. It's the same as Worlds, that number. And you can buy attributes with skill points, which is always nice. Levels 2, 5, 7, 10, new focus, and at level 5 you get another edge.
Yep, that's pretty much it for character advancement.
We get 2 pages on crafting. This works broadly the same to how it works in Worlds Number, which is you can install mods. There are tables for what mods, examples of mods that you can use for your stuff, and you have to be able to maintain them and stuff. And there's like a Nebula special resource that you can use to make mods.
It's what's it called again? It's like special gear, like some sort. I can't remember the term.
It was called like ancient parts or something in Worlds Number. It's
special tech
materials.
Special tech in this one.
I've never really played with this much just because I haven't had players who are that interested in it. I do think one thing worth mentioning here is on the next page, factory mods, because this is like, hey, does one of your companies in your game, like, are they one of the weapons manufacturers? Like, do they have a thing that is like their thing for their guns, or whatever stuff they make? And this immediately makes me think of Borderlands, which is pretty fun. Where like, you have this entire company where all their guns come with scopes or something, regardless of whether it's a fucking pistol or a shotgun or whatever. Could be really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if that corpse specifically is a big part of your game. I think it's also an extra fun thing to give them an extra little personality trait associated with them.
And also because this game doesn't, I mean, there is a lot of gear in this game, but it doesn't do the Cyberpunk game thing where it gives you, here are 87 light pistols. One of these will be the best one, and that's the one that you should buy. So, but it doesn't do that. But I do like that you can add in some diversity of gear by having, whatever. These are this is a Sumitomo gun. Like, they all do whatever. They all have flechettes or something. I don't fucking know. And have that be fun.
Yeah, which might also make them scary to go up against if you know that like their sort of whatever they're using security is all geared out with their stuff. So they might have, you know,
or it also gives you the opportunity to plan against their specific quirk, right?
Yeah, all this stuff is pretty fun. Thank you, Mid said it's Arcane Salvage and World's that number.
Right.
But yeah, so I think also this stuff will come up more when we go through the gear stuff a little bit. We're not gonna go over the gear all that much, but like there is a mod section for both gear and cyber, so there's mods there that you can add on to those.
I like this table for item size and how that corresponds to encumbrance. It's pretty nice and straightforward. On 48 there. Encumbrance is just you can have up to your strength.
Yeah, half your strength in raid items and strength in backpack and stowed items. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it says right here in front of me. I don't know why I'm trying to remember it. Since
yeah, and it just gives you like a broad idea of what that means for any given item, which is a nice handy reference. I do like he's previewing his next RPG here, Games Without Encumbrance. I do appreciate this note actually though, where it's like, hey, some people don't give a shit about this, so just ignore it if you don't care. Just go with whatever is reasonable, which is nice. And
this stuff is all the gear stuff. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Is there anything you want to go over here?
No, I was just gonna getting gear. Some stuff you can't buy from a normal store. Cool. Yeah. Obviously, you can't buy a fucking mortar from a gun shop. Like
so this mostly just gives you the list, explains what they are, how they work. That sort of thing for anything you might need for just regular gear. And you stop me at any point if there's anything that you want to go over here, Jack. There's lifestyle costs, bribe costs. It basically gives you all the sort of costs that players might want to know going into the game, like for stuff like how much a bribe would probably cost, how much the thing. Also helps the GM obviously knowing, like a corp guard just might take 1,000, he might not take 500. Just gives you an idea of like, and again, gives you another reason as to why players should want cash to get through things.
It also, lifestyle will increase or decrease your max system strain, which can mean something in this game. Can be very useful. I think somewhere it points out like, hey, you're probably not doing like big overland expeditions in this game, so you're not going to be, the idea of like long-term resource management of like food and system strain is not as important in a cyberpunk game. So I think that actually honestly gives you even more reason to hand it out more often. But yeah, so an extra +1, spending that $5,000 a month to live could help you. And then armor.
So armor, I mean, we went over a little bit, but armor has two main new things, which is the armor class where you have melee and ranged. Basically, whatever you're using, you go against that. So if you're attacking with a gun, you're going against their ranged. If you're attacking with a melee weapon, against their melee. For GMs, I would say what you're going to want to do, except for special characters, make your life easy. Just usually give the same to like a guard. Just give them like a 4. If they have a 14 in both, just give them that 14 in both. So it's just easier for you to whatever it is. Like I don't think you need to give yourself extra work.
Give them one lower melee than range or something like that.
And I would just follow that. Just to make your life easier, because you're also when you're dealing with stuff like the traumatized and everything else, you're just make your life as easy as possible, because this is a bit of a crunchier combat system than you might be used to with the other ones. And the other big thing is damage soak. Basically, I think this basically stops a certain amount of hit point damage. So I think if you have like a damage soak of 2, if you took 6 damage, you actually take 4 damage. So even if they get past your armor still might be somewhat usable in terms of at least making sure that bullet was slowed down a little bit before it hit you in the belly.
Yeah. That is also, damage soak is not a per hit reduction. It is a one-time per scene reduction of damage.
Oh, that's okay. That's good to know. Yeah. Okay. So I guess that does kind of make up, because most people aren't going to have shields, like I mentioned earlier, where you might be somebody who has a shield which stops shock and other stuff. So it might be at least another way to help with negating some of the horrible damage you might deal with. Also,
like if you're a level 1 character with like 4 hit points, having 5 temporary HP for every fight is helpful.
Yeah.
Like you're not gonna die from shock instantly.
Yeah.
Also, some of the armor changes your trauma target. As we mentioned earlier, there are a lot of ways to get +1s to trauma target.
That's one of the main reasons why you want armor, because I think most of them should, even the lower ones, should at least give you a +1, I think.
About half of them do, yeah.
About half of them do. Okay,
cool. Once you get into like medium armor, then they all increase trauma target. They also have they're either subtle or obvious, which means you can walk around with them and nobody's gonna bat an eye, or people are going to give you weird looks that you're in like riot gear walking down the street.
And that works the same for cyber as well. There are levels of just subtle, obvious, that sort of stuff. There's a few. I think there's like 4 or 3
There's
ranks. 3 ranks.
There's, like one of them is like sight. It's like sight, touch, and like investigation or something. Where it's like one of them you can see it. It's not flesh. One of them you would have to touch it to tell that it's not. And one of them like it is. Unless you're doing like a CT scan, you can't tell that that's not real.
Well, when we cover, we'll see what the exact terms are, because I can't remember what they are exactly. But so you have the same thing for cyber as you do for armor. Same with stacking armor, because there are cyber that will give you other armors. You just take whichever one's better. You don't. They don't stack.
There are like you can accessorize armor to make it better. Like adding a shield, absorption plates, and then I think joint reinforcement is like on top of absorption plates, which just give you extra shit. Like it just makes the armor better. It's cool. You can modify your armor. You can also buy obsolete armor, which reduces its stats but makes it half as expensive.
Yeah.
So.
Actually, one question I have for you, Jack, just because in case I'm missing this. So for stacking armor, it says only one set of armor can be worn at a time, plus whatever accessories are attached to it. Armor and intrinsic AC do not stack. So someone with dermal armor implants who decides to wear conventional armor will use either the cyber stats or the armor stats, not both. So is that saying just the AC, or does that mean you're also not stacking your trauma die going up? Like, because if your dermal armor gives you trauma target, boosts your trauma target, but also I'm wondering if that means if you're also wearing armor that gives you a +1 to your trauma target, do you also ignore that and only take whatever is better?
I would think, I mean, given how explicit it is, it says armor and intrinsic AC do not stack.
Yeah.
So I would probably rule that as though it does. I actually think, no, you know what? I'm pretty sure in places in the dermal armor one, it says that it stacks with other stuff explicitly.
Yeah.
So
the dermal armor
I think most places where it
mentions...
Yeah, I think most places where it mentions increased trauma target, it's like it will stack with other things.
Yeah. The dermal armor implants are awesome because, like I said, we're doing a higher level 1-on-1 just to make Molly a little bit more survivable. And we went through a bunch of stuff, and she has like one of the only things she was able to get was like use dermal armor. And like at level 3, you take the last ones and then you add it, so you have like a +3 to your trauma target essentially at 20 AC and like a few other things. It's pretty intense.
The like really high level stackable cyber is ridiculous.
Yeah,
it costs a ridiculous amount to compensate for that.
Yeah,
like we get guns.
Yeah, going into weapons.
We've pretty much discussed everything. Weapons do damage. They have range if they're ranged weapons. There's magazine, which just represents how many rounds you can fire it before you have to reload, or how many main actions you can fire it before you reload.
Yeah. Some have burst fire,
have an encumbrance.
But
yeah, they have a trauma die. They have a trauma rating, which is between a ×2 and a ×4. I think always, or none. Some of them don't have anything. Weapons are in big broad categories. Some of them you can't normally buy because who's selling you an automatic weapon on the streets?
Yeah, then you use your contacts for that sort of thing, or just whatever.
One thing that I did find weird here, so there is a straight up mechanic for firing to suppress, which is it's in quite a few games. I know Delta Green does that, where it's like, yeah, you can spray down somewhere and people have to dive into cover. Like, yeah. And it's in here, like you just pick a 90-degree cone and everybody has to get into cover, or if you're not behind cover, you have to make an evasion save and you take half the weapons damage if you fail it. That's also really good. You can spray down a hallway and do a bunch of damage to a bunch of guys. Why does a submachine gun not do this? Why is it just an auto rifle and a heavy machine gun? Yeah, I find that kind of weird. Like, I guess whatever, it's firing little bullets, but like if the intent is to suppress people, I feel like you should be able to do it with an SMG. Yeah, I would probably rule that you could do it, because I think it's kind of weird that you more or less can't use that action unless you have a really expensive weapon. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, we went over a lot of stuff. There's obviously weapons that would be in this that are in other games, like grenades. You have like the really heavy weapons, like the anti-material rifle, demo charges. One thing to keep in mind, it's the reason why these you need to be concerned in terms of like how you give these out is that if they're gonna be available, these also will bring a lot of heat. A group going in and just like stabbing a guy to death is one thing. Them blowing out the entire wall of a building to get in, like, it's just, you're just bringing a lot more attention. So like, even if you do make them available, keep in mind that these aren't necessarily things that most teams are going to want to use unless they absolutely have to, or that they just don't give a shit. Because most people, there's a sort of inherent thing in a lot of games, especially Cyberpunk, where it's like the status quo is the status quo, and like as long as you don't break that, you can pretty much do anything. Blowing the fuck out of buildings kind of goes against that in most cases. So even if they do get a rocket launcher, there should still be a thing where it's like there's some team going around with a fucking rocket launher blowing the fuck out of like corporate cars. Like this is way too much heat. So just keep that stuff in mind if you are going to give these out to players as an available option for them to have.
Melee weapons, again, big categories. Thrown weapons are included in melee. There's a thing with thrown weapons I thought that is like, grenades may be thrown at a point within range and always target AC 10.
Yeah.
So carrying a grenade around is probably a good idea.
Yeah. Also, it's a very elegant way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was very upset not to see some square cube law calculation about throwing a grenade in a small place. But hey.
Yeah, I wanted a matrix system that I have to roll on against the table, and
I do like it. Does make me think every time where the one I always think of is for the Atlas previews, because Kevin posted like previews for parts of the Atlas to the Worlds Not Number subreddit. And one of them, it was a bunch of the Makatban Knight fighting styles, which are like by and large kind of anime-y, like magic fighting styles. And one of them is like your spears are all treated as like your level plus 3 feet longer. And somebody was like, how does this interact with squares? Like, I don't understand why this would happen. And Kevin's response is just like, I do not design my games around squares, so it does not matter. It's just like, oh. All right then.
Yeah, that is very funny though. They're
grenades are also kind of cheap if you can source them. So be careful if you hand frag grenades to your players.
Yeah,
like flash and gas and smoke grenades are not that expensive and are easy to get. So again,
and if you do make grenades easy for the PCs to get, maybe whoever they're going against also has access to grenades. There is that give and take that they might have them, but whoever they're going against might also have them. So that can make
they're not like crazy lethal.
No, they're 2d6.
It's 2d6,
which could honestly average kill a lot of first and second level players, but beyond that, you should be at least okay. But yeah,
it's just a pretty guaranteed hit against a handful of people. So
yeah.
You got heavy weapons. There's not that much to say. They're incredibly expensive. They have long range. Most of them are very hard to get a hold of. I think every heavy weapon is you need to know somebody.
Yeah.
Or, otherwise be able to get it.
And there are these little symbols on a lot of these across all the weapons. We just haven't really gone over them. But I will say the one that makes you laugh is there's the exclamation point, which for like the landmine anti-vehicle 38. But also it's just like that means this weapon's trauma die can inflict traumatic hits on drones, vehicles, and other machines. Because I think normally you don't roll if you're shooting at them, you don't roll traumatic hits because they're not human. Is there a plane going over your house? Or was
There's
it
a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Then we get into mods. These are cool. They're all neat. They're also within reasonably expensive in a lot of cases, but not cheap. Do things like add soak, auto stabilize, or have a chance to auto stabilize, makes armor subtle, remove the heavy penalties, like environmentally seal it for a period of time, give you more encumbrance. Like it's neat stuff. It's all useful.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, there's actually like discrete design, make obvious armor subtle.
Yeah,
which is very nice.
Same with weapons. I mean, auto target. These are the things like you might want to add one of these to your corpse specific weapons. Heavy sabo.
Yeah. In the supplemental rules, there's also a section on that thing.
Creating.
Giving personality to the different weapons and stuff for corpse and stuff. But you can do these as well if that's
Yeah, and you can do like stuff like stun rounds and stuff are in here. And a lot of these don't require any special tech. So you just need to have some money and somebody with the right fixed skill. I think that makes the fixed skill more fun. I thought it was kind of... the game was... Worlds Without Number was like purposefully loose about Ancient Salvage or Arcane Salvage, whatever it's called. And it makes it kind of loosey-goosey as to how much you should give out. And so it's nice that a lot of these are like, you don't need anything special. You just need some money and the right skill, which is nice. Get some potions, some pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. So these are all your drugs. I think there's a similar one in Stars Without Number, though they're different ones.
It's the same.
I don't know if any of these are like
it's in
copy and
Worlds
paste
as
from there.
well.
Yeah, it's
It's the stuff that you'd expect.
Yeah.
There's some fun ones like Control Delete destroys your ability to form long-term memories, so they'll still function now, but they won't remember anything that happened. You
Yeah.
can like you could just take a thing that makes you hyper fixate on a memory. Yeah, you're doing the brain dance thing. I mean, you got all your combat chems, your Psycho and
yeah.
Olympus. They have fun names. Panacea.
Yeah. I like Control Delete.
Yeah. Trauma Patch, which is your health potion. They're pretty cheap too, frankly. But then it can happen like once per, what is it? There's a limit, so you can't just keep slapping them on
Do they
people,
add system strain at all, or is it just
what is it?
theoretically foolproof cocktail of coagulants, stimulants, and painkillers? A trauma patch can be applied to a mortally wounded ally to stabilize them on a successful int or dex heal skill check against difficulty 6.
That's just if you don't have a healing kit.
Yeah.
So you can use a trauma patch as like a one-use healing kit.
Yeah.
Right.
Usually, yeah. Okay, cool. Also, yeah, so it's against difficulty 6 instead of 8, then plus. Okay, that's pretty good. So I guess you can add that in conjunction with a healing kit, right? Because that makes it a 6 instead of an 8 as the base.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so give them a little nicotine patch while you try to pump their heart.
Yeah. I like Panacea, not so much a single drug as a pharmaceutical suite in a single injection system. This chem requires a skilled physician to adjust its mix. When used as part of a first aid attempt, this drug doubles the amount of hit points recovered by the attempt with a minimum healing rate of 6 HP. Rumors of drastically increased rate of bone cancers among regular users are, of course, mere slander against its manufacturer.
That's very funny.
Yeah, so that's your like health potion that lets you heal more on a healing check, which is useful if you want to heal with less time taken, because that can matter in this game.
All right.
Cyberware.
And Cyberware, so this is a big part. I mean, it's not that we have that much to go over because we're not going through every little thing, but this is like several pages because you have cyber and complications. Like cyber systems go across like from like there's body, there's head, there's skin, limb, sensory, anything else, medical cyberware, nerve cyberware, and then there's mods. So there's like a lot of stuff. Going wired level 1, I think, is going to be an option a good chunk of people are going to do just because of how much it gives you and how much it gets you into that obviously cyberpunk thing where you're going to want a lot of good stuff because you can build really good characters through foci, through edges, through cyber, good armor or weapons. Like I love how much you can do different things to get either the same result or a similar result that fits more narratively with how you see your character. And the cyber stuff, holy shit. There's so much and it's so good.
Yeah, and this is the one place where it does get into a big long list of stuff just because you need to have a lot of cool cyberware in your fucking cyberpunk setting. That's not very fun otherwise.
Yeah.
There's rules for installation, which are you can fail and make it count as secondhand if you fuck up too badly. It's relatively difficult. I mean, like, it can be pretty bad for you if they fail. And also like the amount of, so when you have cyberware installed, it increases your minimum system strain up to a point. And based on the individual amount of system strain a piece gives, there's this chart that's it costs a lot more money to install and you have to recover for a long time.
Yeah.
Which can be very dangerous.
Yeah. That's what makes the wired one so good because it does all the maintenance for 2 months, does the installation for you, and you just get a bunch of money to do all these things. So if you do want to go cyber, just take the wired. There's no reason not to. Unless you're, I guess, doing something else with your edges. Because later on it does become, having somebody fuck it up is probably pretty rare, but all the costs associated. Yeah. I also think for the GM, it also is good for the players to take this stuff because, again, it gives them an inherent reason to keep adventuring, which you should obviously do anyway. If you're playing a game, if you make a character that's not good for adventuring, why are you being a dick and making a character that doesn't do stuff? But it will at least be like, man, I have like $5,000 a month in like cyber. I have so much stuff on me. Like we need to keep doing lots of jobs. Yeah, it's 5%. Of total cyber cost,
so you could have up to 10K a month to start out with, or was it a week? It's a month, isn't it? What we got? Skill plugs, which are fun. It's like a relatively inexpensive, I mean, all things considered, relatively inexpensive augment that lets you pop in skill levels more or less. Level 1s are reasonably easy to get, then level 2s are pretty rare, and they're like level 3 is super rare. And level 4s are like, this is literally made it's destructively made from somebody who's an expert in this. So like that would be like a campaign item, right, to get a level 4 skill plug where it's like, we got to get it was made from the brain of the best Ripper Doc who
Yeah.
ever lived. Like,
yeah, that's the kind of like thing you might get yourself killed over having. People might really, really want that. Also, I just saw it here. Yeah, so the concealing detecting cyber, there's medical grade cyber is completely concealed from surface level inspection and cannot be detected without a cyber scanner or medical examination. Touch rated cyber is an obvious to mere visual examination. But anybody who touches you can tell, obviously, there's some shit going on. And there's sight, which on sight immediately, like, holy shit, that guy's head is made of metal.
Yeah,
I can tell that's a cyber dude.
There are things that are hidden or subtle or sight or touch that when they are activated are sight.
yeah. You're not gonna go like it says body blades, like, can't see it as your blades are out just running around trying to stab somebody.
Fucking slicing people up. Like, wow,
no, these are medical raid. You don't know they're
touch.
Here. Yeah. And, okay, yeah, so I mentioned it earlier, there's complications. If you get secondhand cyber, it's half the cost, but you have to roll on the complications table. Some of these are just really, really rough, and some are honestly not that bad. Like, power hungry, the user needs to supplement the system by plugging it into an urban power grid or vehicle power port for half hour each day. That's not tough at all. If you're in a normal world, that's part of their, like, morning routine, having a cup of coffee and just plugging themselves in, you know, in the morning, and then they're good to go. But there's other ones I think that are much worse. But these are not actually none of these are too bad. Or I guess blatant's pretty bad, depending. You know, cyber this normally requires medical or touch detection now becomes obvious on site. So that's kind of rough depending on what you want. If it's like a cool thing that you want to stay hidden. So
right. Yeah, I guess we could go over them broadly. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here. There's like 50 or 60 of them.
Yeah, we can just look over the tables because they give you a quick summary effect.
Yeah,
we don't need to go over every one.
Make yourself
just
make yourself pretty. Limited flying kind of. There's one that just straight up like increases your effective constitution, which can be interesting if you have like a really low con character and you want to cyber them up.
Also, one thing I noticed from going through the cyber stuff is that some of these that are like on the body are also on the limb, where it's like just a different way to get the same end result. Which, like I was saying earlier, it's kind of nice that you can really customize how you see your character in your head to match this. I love the Titan gun system. Mount a heavy weapon
just like
to yourself.
I have mounted a mortar on my my chest.
To my chest.
Like...
You're like a fucking you're just this like fucked up version of Iron Man where you just
look at me. I'm Pacific Rim. Like. So fucking weird.
Yeah, so for bodies, a lot of fun ones like that.
I like one of them like auto stabilizes you.
Yeah.
There's the dermal armor, and then trauma shielding is the higher level of that, where you can up your trauma target.
Yeah. Retribution shield, burst to harm melee targets. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's good for a melee.
This is where the full body conversion is, where you're the $6 million man.
Yeah.
But you get like a con. Your con is effectively 20. Like you can't heal normally. It takes $250 in like repairs every time you want to heal a hit point. You need normal maintenance or you just straight up start to die.
I just realized how fucked up it is to get a second-hand full body conversion for 3 mil, where it's just you just
I don't know if that one counts. I don't know if you can do that one.
Can you get that one? Can you get somebody else's body essentially? Full body conversion, does it say anywhere that you can't do that?
It doesn't say you can't, no.
That's very funny.
Hold out cavity, you get a little tuck in pocket somewhere. That one's always funny to me. Like, they rearranged some things to put that in there, and I'm like, all the stuff that's in there is in there for a reason. What are you moving?
I didn't need that lower jaw.
Where is this going?
I'm gonna get like a full body conversion to look like a Baki character, so that like all my bone structure is just like another.
Ugh, disgusting! You sick fuck.
There's head cyberware. You have some cool ones here. I think just the one I like a lot, just because of the name, is Skull Citadel, which is just armor the brain against harm.
He really thought about making that one Mind Palace, and then just did a synonym.
Yeah. The Medusa implant, prehensile hair implants.
That's I've never seen that one before. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's really cool. These prehensile cranial tendrils take multiple forms, from thick armored cables to bundles of brightly colored articulated polymer fibers, not unlike normal hair. Tendrils are shoulder length under most circumstances, but can extend to manipulate objects up to 3 meters distant. That is actually a really fun thing to take.
Yeah.
Especially for like a villain. I could see a villain based off of having that just as a fun look.
Because it counts as like an extra limb, more or less. There is also a straight up one that is an extra limb. You
Yeah.
can get, it's like Neo limb or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
look, there's one here for you, Cranial Jack. God
damn it.
They called me Cranial Jack around these parts.
Oh, that's a terrible nickname. I hate that. I like okay, there's one in here that I thought was really fun, which is iMod Flechette Launcher. Which is, a holdout weapon designed for surprise short-range attacks. This eye has been loaded with a small explosive flechette. It has just the statistics of a light pistol, has a range of 10 meters, and requires a main action to reload. It's single-round magazine. If used against a target in melee range who does not suspect its existence, a normal hit roll is made. On a miss, it does full normal damage anyway. On a hit, damage is double.
That is
Can
so
be used
funny.
for execution attacks.
Oh my god, that is so...
What? You just have to stare at somebody for a minute, and then you can murder them.
So is that like just talking to somebody where like, would that work where you're just talking with them like in a dialogue scene? If they're like relaxed and they won't like suspect you?
Unaware explicitly for execution attacks. Like unaware that you're trying to do it.
Yeah.
But like, that means you could be sitting behind somebody on the train.
Yeah.
And be like... and your eye just goes, bah!
Bam!
It just explodes.
Sorry, allergies. As the guy's just like heads just fucking
viscera on the seat in front of him.
But yeah, that's the heads. I don't know if there's any other ones you wanna point out.
I mean, there's stuff like one of them is like a bomb that they can set off if you do something fucked up.
So for skin Cyberware, the dermal armor is so good because dermal armor 3, which is a lot of money, but it's actually not that much, especially if you get secondhand.
It is one of the single most expensive ones in the entire list.
Does do a really good job though of being amazing because it takes on all the levels before it. So you start out with dermal armor 1, AC 16 plus 1 to trauma target. Dermal armor 2 as 1, but AC 18 and also shock resistance. I think that counts as, in addition, the user can ignore the first instance of shock in a round.
Counts as a shield,
yeah. And then dermal armor 2, you take on 2, but AC 20 plus 2 trauma target. So at level 3, you have 3 trauma target. Shock, you resist shock and 20 AC. Like that is so good.
There are a handful of these for several different aspects that are these like multi-level ones, and they are, with no exceptions other than the $6 million man one, they are the most expensive and they do the most ridiculous like individual number stuff. Yeah, they're very good. We'll get some more of these.
I will say, I do find it funny that people were mad about him doing the joke of $6 million. Like, just change the price. If you think it's too much, just change it. Like, it's not that hard.
Make it more expensive.
Yeah, make it more expensive if you want to. Well, mine's a $12 million man.
I do like there are like in places including this like sealed systems implant, which like acts as like a spacesuit more or less. I do like that there are nods to space stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's like a part of like Neuromancer that I really liked, where it's like, yeah, people are in space. Like, it's really fucking expensive, but people live out there. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like a not often touched on cyberpunk thing. I guess it is in like some more recent stuff, like in. It
also works for radiation, contact poison, toxic gases. So if you're also going into any sort of parts like outside the city or even parts of the city that are fully like maybe were hit by nukes or have weird toxins in the system or bioweapons, it works for a lot of things too. Or if you're even going to like, I don't know, part of a building that has like no oxygen for whatever big machine is there sucking the oxygen out as part of its systems. So it has a lot of uses even outside of just space. It's just a good like protection system.
Altered Carbon, that's what I can think of with good old buddy Joel.
Yeah.
First season.
I do like the first season of that show.
It's good, yeah.
Second season kind of fell off for me, but mostly just because Anthony Mackie plays him in that, and he's so mean to Poe in the second season. I'm like, man, stop being mean to Poe. Fuck off.
I mean, Poe's really fucking annoying.
Poe was annoying, but I felt like by the end of season 1, they had become closer as like somewhat friends.
He also has like dementia by season 2, doesn't he?
Yeah. He goes through this whole arc in this weird like Victorian like. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
No, I really like Joel Kinnaman in 1. He plays the perfect dickhead.
He does. He plays a great
dickhead in so many different things. I don't know why he's so good at that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad he got a second chance in the second Suicide Squad, because the first Suicide Squad was such garbage. But he's in the second one, and he's much better in that one since he has more to work with, and he just works as just a for a standard white guy actor with a square jaw and blonde hair. He does a good job of being a really angry one. He's like
he'd be a good
angry Ryan Gosling
from from Wolfenstein. He's good in
yeah, he actually would be perfect if they ever do a movie. He'd be perfect for that.
Actually, he's like
he's got the perfect jaw
exactly
and everything.
yeah.
Yeah, he does look. Yeah.
He's really good in For All Mankind as well. I recommend
that.
that show. It's an Apple TV exclusive, so that's probably but it's really good. Anyway,
for limb cyberware, this is a lot of these are weapons.
We get our next like muscle fiber replacement too. Like 18 strength can just walk through doors as if they're not there.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, and then Neo limb, which is what I mentioned earlier, where it's like you get another limb or a tail or something or a pseudopod that can be up to 3 meters long.
I'm just thinking
it can hold things.
He's some kind of neo limberal over here, just
just over here. Like let's walk back some of our progressive limbs. Okay, let's be a little less. Let's just calm down here a little bit. Corporation's good? Question mark?
Good, yeah. But dumb jokes aside, one thing I also want to mention that I forgot to mention earlier with the dermal armor that you'll also see here with the muscle fiber replacement is that the higher levels will also change the conspicuousy of these. So like muscle fiber replacement 2 is on sight, whereas 1 is touch, which does add to thinking about how you come across to the NPCs in the world. That's good to keep in mind.
These high level ones, you're really fucking obviously a cyborg because you've replaced your muscles with mechanical muscles. Like, you probably look like a fucking Metal Gear Solid robot with level 2 on this. You're all covered in weird loose fiber and shit.
So, and I think there's all the fun stuff that you'd want. You got the body blades, you got the shock fists, Omni Hand.
Iron Hand Aegis is fun, which is just straight up like you get your limb gets like a ballistic computer in it that's always like scanning around you. It's like a fucking anti-ballistic, like what tanks have, where they'll like shoot shit out at incoming rounds, where it'll just snap up automatically to block a bullet, which is really fun.
Oh, that is really fun.
They don't have the super busted Hong Kong one where you auto throw back every grenade that's thrown within like 3 meters of you.
That's very fun. Omni Hand's also really cool. A full array of small mechanical and electronic tools are folded into the Cyberdecks hand. This user has never without the tools for relevant skill checks, and once per day as an instant action can gain +1 on any skill check involving the Omni Hand's tool use. As an improvised weapon, the tools do damage as a knife. Cool.
That's a fun one, I like that. You can get stick pads as well, which is always fun.
Macro scale van der Waals generator allows the user's hands and feet to stick to vertical or overhanging surfaces. Their full weight supported by 1 arm. They can climb such surfaces at their full movement rate with 1 free hand. Nice. That is cool.
So you can just be like chameleoning up a wall with a pistol.
That's really funny to imagine, like imagery wise, of just one guy going up a building, just like
you're just like a fucking professional rock climber, fucking climbing up this wall.
The next is sensory cyberware.
It's what you'd expect mostly. You can get cyber eyes and cyber ears, and you can modify them with different stuff.
With low light vision, infrared, tactical view, zoom. The gun link is pretty good. Bonus when using firearms, that's pretty good. Basically, just like a lot of stuff that will make your gun smart. If you don't make the gun itself smart with bullets and other things, then you can make it with.
Because like every weapon is implied to have like onboard targeting systems, and the gun link just accesses them. Medical cyberware. Would you like a prosthetic that's pretty good?
To undo a major injury that you might have gotten with one of those limbs. Okay, cool.
Those are thankfully not super expensive, and I can appreciate that. Because it's like you got your limb destroyed and you're like, do I want to pay like $100,000 to get a cyber limb? No, here, just get a prosthetic. Like,
oh, and what's cool too, so prosthetic cyber 1 is that the difference is that it's on site, you can see it, whereas cyber 2 is less system strain and also looks like you need to actually like check them.
You got a big chrome arm or you got a fucking cyborg arm. And then regulated anagathic substrate. Anagathics are the thing from Stars of That Number that make you live longer, and they're like $50,000 a month. But you live a D4 plus 2 decades longer. That's so really you're loaded. You just live for an extra 40 years or something.
I feel like that one's not that useful for most games, but if you're doing some sort of insanely long campaign over long stretches of time, I guess it's fun for that. If you it also works for your character type if you want. If you're like, I'm so rich, I can just do this just for the fun of my own character, I guess there's that. But.
Yeah, if you wanted to do like a lineage kind of campaign where you keep skipping forward or something, it might make sense.
Yeah, you don't
The
plan
nerve
to, and then somebody
one,
gets this, and you're like, well, guys, like, it looks like a lot of you are going to die by the end of the year. But yeah, next you have his nerve Cyberware. What are you going to say?
yeah, this is all. Most of these are. I mean, you have your skill plug stuff, which you mentioned earlier. Most of these are like, hey, you get a lot higher score in a thing. It's more of those. Coordination bumps your dex up to 18, and you get a base move rate plus 10.
I love zombie
Enhanced
wires.
reflexes is the really notable one because it is it is very expensive for good reason, and it ends up factoring into the there's like a CR style calculation in this game to allow you to kind of guess at how tough enemies are. And enhanced reflexes is a multiplier to that number because giving guys extra main actions is really good.
Dude, yeah. Fuck. I mean, it's some insane system strain, but at enhanced reflexes 3, 750k. Also only touch, so it's still not super obvious necessarily. And then yeah, 4 system strain, but twice per scene, bonus main and move. That's pretty nuts.
Yeah, and you can just take a system strain to use it again. Wow. You get it twice per scene, and you can just.
So you're doing, one move you can move.
It's the Sandevistan or whatever from.
Yeah, Sandevistan from Cyberpunk Edge Runners. Yeah, yeah. No,
to go more.
that's nuts. Just imagine a guy. He's like, he's pretty far away, and then boom, just 3 movements in one turn.
Like, want to see me run to that mountain back? Yeah. Want to see me do it again?
I love zombie wires, which is fun. Keep acting at 0
cool,
HP. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So your mouse systems continue.
Yeah, 1 sentence description to them that says do this.
That's pretty fun.
But then they take up to a quarter. Like if people keep attacking you, if you take over a quarter of your max hit points, you die instantly.
Yeah.
As it's too much damage.
And what I was saying earlier about how like you can get similar things from different ways, the trajectory optimization node allows you once per scene to turn a miss into a hit, which acts very similar to the veteran's luck. It's a little bit worse than that, but it's
half of it, right?
It's half of what's there. So, and for 50k and 1 system strain, that's actually like not bad. Plus, you can still get this on top of that, I'm fairly sure, right? So it's like you can also make it like almost
you can stack ways to get good shit. Yeah, same thing like reaction booster 2 is kind of like alert level 2 where you automatically win initiative. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. The gun link also is shockingly good for being like kind of a normal thing because it's just like no range penalties, -2 on the penalties for cover or concealment or whatever, and you also get a reroll on a missed attack
once we're seen as an instant action. Wow, that's so good. Yeah, in the one-on-one game, Molly's just making like a cybered up sniper, like assassin character. And she obviously took gun link as one of the cyber things because it's honestly pretty cheap for what you're getting. 25k. For all that is like really good. So
it's like the classic thing in every game. The gun link cyber is like, what is this? It's like a 1 slot cyber, and it's just really good. It's like, okay, fine, that's cool. Do that.
Yeah, and then unless there's anything else you want to go over, we go into Cyberware mods. Which act the same as like the gun and armor mods, which is you already take those things and then you can enhance them further with different things, and their cost is a percentage of whatever tech they're doing. So the more expensive the tech you're augmenting, the more you're gonna pay in mod prices. And you also, for some of these like biocapacitors and looks like tailored interface, you do need that special tech. And to be clear, special tech is just a term, like it's just like an item. There's not like certain kinds of special tech you need. It's just, so it's not like, oh, I only found like this software that's special tech. It's like, no, that just gets converted into this currency. Let's see here.
Pretty much it for Cyberware.
Yeah. There's some good stuff here about capacitors. Ignore first system strain trigger cost per day.
Lowering strain that the systems induce on you. Extra +1 to attack, like whatever. And we get into decks, which is pretty short. All it is you can get bonus access, which is more or less the number of things you can do before a system locks you out.
Yeah.
Different decks have more memory, which is like more verbs and subjects that you can have stored on them.
Yeah.
They have shielding, which is they can it's your hit points kind of.
Yeah, do we want to go over this stuff because we're doing hacking next? Do you want to just do vehicles and then come back to this one? Because I guess I don't know how much it matters, but I
mean that's like everything, right? Yeah. And then the CPU is just the number of things you can do at once.
We'll explain this more when we get to the hacking rules, which are pretty soon. It works the same as everything else. Yeah, it's for hacking, and then you can make certain things more what you need for hacking.
Then drones. It just gives you the broad categories of drones. It gives them a name, but like it's a good guideline. I do like that one of like the heavy ground drones, the Kessler Kerberos, Cerberus, whatever, built on a large motor-sized tricycle chassis is so funny to me for some reason. To imagine like a big heavy drone as a trike.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, that is funny.
Yeah, there's flying and ground and water drones. They have an AC. They have a trauma target for things that can deal traumatic hits to them. They have HP, and they have fittings, which is like the number of things. Fittings aren't like hard points. They're like mods. And then hard points are like weapons.
Yeah.
Typically. So we had talked about these kind of like drone mods, like another hard point. Sorry, mods are not fittings. Mods are like you can increase stuff.
Oh, there you go. Drone
which
fittings
typically are
page. Okay, yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Mods are like typically you can make something a little better and make something else a little worse. To just kind of tweak the drone around to be what you want. Fittings are like they're just useful stuff that you can have. Like one of them makes flying drones better, gives them more ammo,
improved armor.
Cargo space. The command decks, which are like command deck kill, you can be like shoot at that guy, and then it will do that without you having to spend your action. Follow, patrol, etc. Yada yada yada.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Like I normally wouldn't be that interested in drones.
Yeah,
but I think the drones are kind of neat in this.
Yeah, the drones are neat, and also the rules around them are not overly complex. They're pretty simple. So there's a whole rule in drone operation. I don't know. We don't really need to go into that. I don't think it works like we mentioned earlier. You share your actions unless you have the foci that stops that from happening.
Well, yeah, there's one that gives you, I think, an edge that gives you an extra main action that is just a drone one or the just level 2 focus. Yeah.
And the reason why I think we're speaking about this a little bit is that honestly the vehicles is the next section, and vehicles and drones basically act very similar in a lot of ways. Just that vehicles have like the crew and mass and size. They have a few extra things going on because they're just essentially bigger drones that can also carry people. And it goes from vehicles to like from cars to like motorcycles to drop crafts. It says here drop crafts is $1 million.
Yeah, so that's like a heavy. That's your fucking max tac or whatever trauma team thing.
Yeah.
That flies up and is like a fucking it's a flying APC more or less.
Exactly. And they also have fittings. I believe they also have mountain weaponry, and they also have mods. So between drones and vehicles, it's not just like a flying drone that we know and like a car that as a getaway vehicle. It's everything from a little like bomb disarmament sort of drone that you might send into a room to stop like to drop a bomb, or it might be like a fucking helicopter for the vehicles. Like it covers all those bases.
Yeah, and there's fun. Yeah, the vehicles all have fun fittings as well, just like the drones do.
Yeah,
a lot of it's fun. It's like you could I wouldn't. A lot of times these vehicle and like drone systems rigging, I think, is the Shadowrun word for drone operators, riggers. Yeah. They feel like they're usually pretty complicated. And it's like a whole other subsystem of the game that you have to learn. And a lot of times as well, they feel like you kind of have to make a sacrifice to make them work. Or like, you're like substantially worse because you got to do all this drone shit. And this one, it's just like, whatever. You use an action to control the drone, just like you'd use normal action. Yeah. Vehicles are pretty good. You can have people doing all kinds of shit in them. Like it's a vehicle. So.
Yeah. Yeah, if anything, it feels more like you're just not specializing in other things, unless you're having things taken away from you because you're going into vehicles or drones as your main thing. Because we've already gone over the weapons and the cyber and all that stuff, all these things essentially all kind of act the same. It's just for whatever you're doing it on, whether it's vehicles or drones. Yeah. So
it is, I would say in general, from a design philosophy standpoint, this game relies... Are there mods in Stars Without Number?
There are, but I don't know if they work this way or if they work a little bit differently, but there are mods, yeah.
Okay. Like Worlds Without Number has a pretty extensive mod and magical working system and, magic creation. This game is way more focused around having a mod system for every subsystem, which I think works really well in its favor. It lets you do that real granular cyberpunk tweakness without needing 80,000 lists of 100 almost identical things on them, right? Yeah. Then we get a bunch of example kitted out vehicles that you can use just quickly if you need to, as a GM, provide.
I almost always use these. When I was running Stars Without Number, it was so easy to have example vehicles for when they were fighting pirates and stuff. I just usually took those. You might change a thing here or there to fit with what you need, but these are so nice just to have these right here all on one page just to go off of. Yeah, and you got stuff like Badlands Smuggler, Police Cruiser. You have stuff Kessler Mjolnir.
Which is it's the fucking max tac, or it's the trauma team
Yeah.
dropships.
Yeah, I
It's
think
got fucking auto
max hack.
cannons and
Yeah.
mini missile pods and
Yeah.
fucking sensors and ECM jammer. Like,
The headshot pod can inflict catastrophic damage on anything up to and including a main battle tank. Jesus fucking Christ.
well, if you see the main battle tank gun, it like treats everything as AC 10.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny.
1d20. Anything within 10 meters takes 1d20 damage.
Next is hacking, and I personally really like the hacking rules. They seem to be following where I think a lot of Cyberpunk games these days are going. Cyberpunk Red does, though a much more crunchy game. A similar thing of basically you're still in the real world while you're also doing the cyber stuff. It's not like, I think Shadowrun you jack in and then you go basically into a completely different world. You kind of do that in this game, but you're also still somewhat connected to the world everybody else is in. And also the thing we mentioned earlier where you're still using the same amount of rounds, so you're not doing a thing where somebody's playing their own game while you're doing the whole of their combat. The way it works in this is that you basically, when you're doing the only thing that this adds really is some extra prep for any job you're doing, because you kind of have to have your base map, and then over that map you have to make your cyberspace topography sort of map, which essentially is just connecting every device either to itself if it's in its own node, not connected to the rest of the thing, or if you have like cameras going back to like a security terminal, all cameras might go back to that same terminal, and they all might be on like one system that's like on the outside, a more easy to hack system, and then like the inside security system might be on its own system where it's like, okay, we were able to get in the door, but the door wasn't attached to like, you know, the whole power system, like that's deeper into the game.
You essentially make like a number of like kind of point crawl maps that overlay your systems, right? It sounds like it could be a lot of work. Probably not in practice though. You just kind of do what makes sense. Slate systems does make sense. It's important. It probably has some extra security on it, like stuff like that.
You're going to be in this game, so I can't say too much, but I will say in practice of setting up a map with this, really didn't take me that much time, because a lot of it is just kind of logical, where just one thing it says in the book when saying it, which we'll get into the mission stuff later, but basically what the best of the book says, which feels very obvious after I read it, was take real life blueprints or real life building plans and then just use those because they're so similar to what a cyberpunk, you know, building would have. Change what you need. You know, you might make them closer, where you might add more hallways or more parts where like it wouldn't be as easy for people to walk around in. But from there, if you throw down cameras, doors, whatever, it's very easy to then just sort of link back to where they would go into like a secure room or to a server or whatever. Once you're doing it is honestly a lot easier than reading through it. I think the system works really well. I haven't seen it in play just yet, but as in terms of GM prep, I found it kind of soothing, already having everything put down and then just kind of being like, okay, I'll connect this to this, I'll connect this to that. This thing sits by itself, because why would they want this connected to a system? It makes way more sense to not let anybody get in through this way. I think the only thing people have to watch out for is honestly not making things too hard. If you make things for the player where it's like trying to get in, this is not connected to anything, this is not connected to anything, this is not connected, like it might be harder for the hacker to actually, you know, make any progress meaningfully into breaking down the system. So I think that's the only thing that'll be hard for new GMs or new to this sort of style play.
And I think the answer is right, is just to err on the side of connecting things, and then in more secure places there's more distribution of systems, right? We talked about it earlier, but I do want to reiterate that, like, I mean, it goes over like what hacking looks like in VR and stuff, but then it much like it lays out the legacy in Worlds That Number, he's like, hey, it is important for like 80s style cyberpunk that the world is not networked. Otherwise, nothing, you can't do this, and it doesn't make sense to do it, right? Like, there is no global internet. There's no state that can view every data transmission. Like, the government isn't monitoring data transmissions. There's no worldwide, there's no social media, like insofar as we have social media, right?
Yeah.
Like, publicly available internet is like very rigidly controlled and segmented into smaller internets, curated by the corps. There's only information on there that they want you to see. There's no government database storing every transaction you've ever made. Everyone's keeping those in their own stuff. What else? People might have phones, but there's phones, I mean, there's cell phones in a lot of foundational cyberpunk, frankly, but like, there's no global apps, and there's no, you know, social media, global internet, stuff like that. There's no Wikipedia in the cyberpunk dystopia. And Like if you're in a building, there aren't Wi-Fi fucking thermostats and networked computers.
No.
Everybody, you get your work on a data shit like stick. You put it in your computer, you do your work, and then you hand that off to your boss, right? Like, and these I find, enumerating these conceits is super important for making a hacker's job make fucking sense in this setting.
I think one thing too to go off of what you're saying there as well is that to remember with cyberpunk stuff is that cyberpunk is not the future. Cyberpunk is a sort of futuristic version of what the world could be like if our technology went a different way than it does. So if people go like, well, it makes no sense. I know because I know a lot of this stuff is futuristic. So a lot of people might go like, well, we have this in our world. So yeah, but this is laid out differently. You're not going to have a Wi-Fi toaster because why the hell would you let anybody try and get into your system through a toaster by accident where they might be able to connect to the rest of your thing? Everything is analog unless it absolutely has to be because you want to shut down as many ways anybody can get into your system or even use one of those appliances as a distraction. You don't want them making like exploding something that then makes a guard walk away from their post to go figure out what that is. So remember that with your players. Like, remember, this is not a future where like that we're in. It's a different setting. So like if anybody brings you well, in the real world we have these, not in this world. That does not necessarily matter that exists in our world currently. Now you might do that. Your cyberpunk system might be our world, but in the future. But then that goes into a whole other thing where you're changing what the base here is. So.
Right. And I think like the general reason that it gives for why things are this way can be applied even if you wanted to take a world like ours, which is just that in a world where somebody can set up a fucking computer and within a few minutes like hack into a corporate database. Obviously we know you can't really do that in real life. You have to do like a lot of social engineering generally, but it would be really unsecure to have anything transmitting data wirelessly. So like it's just so easy to do malicious things that nobody transmits data wirelessly because that makes it will get stolen. It will get stolen.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and it lays out very explicitly what hackers do, like what their job is in this setting, which is defeating security, falsifying data, whatever, changing records, looping cameras, things like that, and debilitating enemies who are also like cybernetic or in the cyberspace.
I mean, so a lot of this is essentially you're essentially just having a different map on top of the map you're in, and that's the easiest way to explain it. When they're in the world, you might have a certain look a certain way. If you have some super nerd hacker who has everything, so like if you have like one nerd hacker who has like a sword and sorcery kind of thing, so you might like the camera might look like, I don't know, some weird little like totem or like religious symbol or some weird thing like that, like a Sathagwa avatar or something. All sorts of stuff like that. I guess we'll just go through what it says here, not like reading it word for word, but just go through what it has, because we have stuff like access. And access is a hacker's base access is equal to their intelligence modifier plus their program skill plus their Cyberdecks bonus access rating. Access, I believe, sort of allows you to do things on the network, and you can get access from stuff like being given passwords or just getting data on whatever network you're trying to get into.
Social engineering is still very useful in this
game. So your contacts are really good for that. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that access is like, it might be, here's the passwords for this week. That might not be the same next week, so it is perishable. So if you do get it, it is something to be used like soon, not something to really sit on.
It's your spell slots,
exactly.
Sort of at the end of the day,
pretty much.
You refresh it. I do find the wording kind of weird because I assume it means it's like spells where you spend an hour each day refreshing it by like combing through exploits and trying to set it up, and you can only happen once a day. Also, there is some more nice explicit stuff where it's like, well, demons are, like a network demon. Like it's something that is active. It's a program that's actively trying to resist you incursing onto the network. It's ice. If anyone's familiar with the Shadowrun, it's black ice. And also it's hacking. If you are hacking somebody, they know 100% of the time. You can't hide the fact that you are hacking into somebody.
No. They'll be alerted, and you're basically gonna let them know that they're about to be attacked. Probably. Well, also it says here unless it's for going through like a checkpoint into a building, if you start hacking somebody, they're immediately going to think they're about to get attacked or something bad is about to happen to them. So they are immediately going to pull their gun out, or they're going to be like on alert looking around. They're going to book it. Like it's not you can't easily hack people. One thing too with demons, just to go back for a second. Demons have what's the word? They follow their
like routines.
Yeah, they're routines. They have routines. There's actually like a page of routines for demons.
Yeah, they're programming.
Yeah.
It's on 103.
So
where it's like it's roles
exactly.
that they fulfill more
so
or less.
You can just follow those. They always, or not always, but they tend to do the first one and then the second one. So this is a very easy thing for any network you make. If you have a demon on it, you can just give them one of these and they're going to follow that. So like for the bouncer one, they're going to run stun avatar against any intruders until they have been knocked unconscious or offline, and then they'll perform the alert the network action. So once the person's been repelled, then they're going to alert the network. And that's how those work, because a lot of places aren't going to be able to afford a full-time hacker. They might have a hacker during like the nighttime when there's not other people online or whatever, or they might have a demon, which is much cheaper to have a demon than it is to have a full-time salaried hacker who's much better than a demon is.
Yeah, I do like that the rules. Yeah, hackers, like counter hackers, are watchdogs, is what their word for it is, and it's like they use the same rules, excuse me, as a PC would. So if you want to have somebody counter hacking, that's your mechanics for that.
Yeah, and on top of that, networks. There's different levels of networks of how expensive they are, and those networks, like if you have just a basic network that's not even a server, you can't even have any demons on that. But you have like a server, just like a normal security system for like any building that has a server. You can have I think like 1 or 2 demons that can run it. But like as you get into more expensive stuff, you can have more demons, more people doing stuff on it. I think that covers those things. I think mostly what we should just cover now is just the subjects and verbs.
Yeah, so one of the really interesting system for how the hacking works, which is you have subjects and you have verbs. Subjects are what they sound like, a broad category of things that you want to affect, whether it's like an avatar, a barrier, which is like a digital barrier, a camera, a file, a door, drones, machines, programs, sensor, turrets, yada yada yada. Those are subjects, and then you can perform verbs on them, and there's a lot more verbs than there are subjects, which are verbs have different subjects they can be implemented with, like you can't blind a data file, right? Like you can blind a device or cyberware, but it costs access to use these, but they typically do something pretty good.
Yeah, and some of the access
these are your hacker spells.
Yeah, exactly. And some, once you use them, like all the ones with asterisks here on the verbs, like activate. Once you use that access goes back to your slots. You can do it again. Honestly, a bit like effort. In a way. Yeah, so
it's effort. Yeah,
that's basically all it is. So yeah, so you can do stuff like that. That's basically how you open things or do stuff. And yeah, so there's a load of different verbs here. I think the subjects pretty much cover everything you would ever need. You might, in some crazy instance, have something that does not count as any of these, but that'd be pretty rare.
Typically, yeah, if you're in a fight with something, you'll use. There's one verb, which is stun. Is the normal fight verb. There's also kill, which is them trying to like fry you over the network. So that's not as common, but
most companies aren't going to have that unless it's like a super secure like thing. Where it's like we can't let anybody escape with this.
Yeah, and that's so also the word they use for a human hacker's presence is avatar. Yeah. So whether it's you or somebody counter hacking you, you have an avatar in cyberspace.
And there's cyberspace actions, just the way there are those combat actions.
Yeah, you get an extra one if you have the hacker edge. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think it'd be interesting.
Well, we were supposed to have a game this week, but just time messed up, so we're gonna have a game next week. So I'll have a better idea of how those things work. I made a pretty simple one, but I did really like how it worked. It seemed to look pretty good, so I think we'll have a fun time playing it. We'll see if it doesn't end horribly. But yeah, and then so there's network servers and architecture, like I mentioned earlier. They're at different prices, and they show you like what those allow. They show you how many barriers you're allowed to have, and also how many demons you're allowed to have at any one time. Gives you the cost and everything. So this might be for the players if they also have their own system that they don't want to get hacked, but also this is more useful for the GM and just knowing, okay, obviously, like this little small company is not going to have an epsilon level server. They're going to have like an alpha server. Yeah, I think honestly, saying a point crawl is probably the closest to what it is. It's essentially setting up a point crawl on top of your dungeon, and that's probably the simplest way to explain it.
And it could be either a single point crawl or like a network of distributed smaller point crawls, depending on how isolated all their systems are.
Yeah, everything like a camera is a node. Like all those things are nodes, and you might have an isolated node that's just by itself. Like the outside door. that's like a security door, you might not want that connected to the inside, because you might want to be like, okay, they might be able to get by the door, but I don't want them hacking the door and then getting through to the server from the door. But you might have it on its own network or on its own node.
That is actually the end of the rules.
Yeah, that's pretty much the end of hacking. And the rules, because everything else now is, well, except for later
the deluxe edition content.
Yeah,
that is all the rules in the standard free edition of the game.
The rest is all the building stuff.
5 pages.
Yeah.
105 pages for all the rules in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we get into Kevin Crawford's much vaunted DM sections of all of his games, which are generally excellent, even if you're not using the game system.
Yeah, and for anybody familiar with my stuff, I've done 3 videos now, or 3 streams that I've turned into videos now, where I've done the character, and then I also did the gangs and, a district, gangs, and the Megacorps. I didn't perfectly follow each one. I just used a lot of the tables and then kind of did my own thing with it. But overall, I followed the book for the most part for what it mattered. And from what I got, was all pretty good. The only real criticism I have, we can go over them, but the only real criticism I have, because I think it does a really good job of building gangs and megacorps and factions, I think the naming system isn't the best. I think what they have for names can end up with some awkward names. Not that they're bad, but I had to choose a few times. I was like, these two things don't really go together, but but outside of that, everything else I think made some really, really fun megacorps and gangs pretty easily and on the fly. I think overall those tools work really well.
So we generally have a lot of the same sandbox advice in here that are in most of the Without Numbers games. It's written to be a sandbox game. I mean, particularly a cyberpunk game. I mean, you could do something relatively story driven, but that seems almost weird given the genre. And so this splits the world into broadly three delineations, which is the world itself, which has the more broad, like, why is it a dystopia? There's the city, which defines like the broad themes of, the trappings of the campaign. And then there are the districts, and a city can have any number of districts, and they can really vary wildly in their flavor and content, because it's like your city is like your kind of cyberpunk, mega city sprawl type thing. Like we're talking like Tokyo or LA, and we get a nice big list of cyberpunk themes that are laid out here just as like broad themes to fall back on in flavoring your world, like alienation, dehumanization, escapism, meat, sex, squalor, urbanization, violence, like just broad themes of like, things to think about when designing your hooks and plots and stuff. I really like that. I think that's very well laid out.
Yeah, it gives you all the different levels of just giving an idea of what you want to focus on for your world, and I think it also makes it easier to show your players what themes you want to focus on. And one thing I'll just respond to Green Stratter here, who says, I use Terraforming Mars Corporation's Megacorps, which is a great idea. That board game has a shitload of those. And also, backers at the end of the book for NPCs, which is what the book says. Really, really useful. Honestly, just going to the back of the book where all the backers are is a great way to quickly mash together 2 names and make a name. I also think that was advice in Worlds Without Number as well, I think. It works better for Cyberpunk because there's a lot of people who just have their usernames as their backer names. So there's a lot of stuff that just aren't names. Like there's one guy that I saw that was just Atom, like an atom bomb, but it was ATOM, full caps, and like a period after each one. So like that's like a good one to go off of. But yeah, there's so many different names. I actually found it works weirdly well for making NPC names on the fly. I get lucky having a chat when I was making these where I just had people shitting out all sorts of names into the chat for me to choose from. But if you don't have that, the book is good. And also if you're on the fly in a game, if you need to be like, shit, I need a name, just crack open your book, go to the back, and just pick out a quick name. Yeah, I didn't do any world stuff, because the world stuff I honestly think for most games is probably honestly bigger than what most people need. Most people aren't going to care about the world when they're surviving. So if you do want to put those down, I think that's good if you want to do those, because it has like write history, choose little problems, identify superpowers. I think that's all fun stuff if you have that energy. But I also don't think you need to start that big. I think starting with a district is more important, in my opinion, over the world stuff.
I would disagree mainly on one major point, which is just that I think it is important to kind of flavor your dystopia properly. Because there is, I mean, you could make some baseline assumptions about what your cyberpunk dystopia is, but I think it's more interesting if you take a little time to flesh it out. I think it actually gives you like a list of potential dystopias, like your
Yeah.
world's problems. I think it gives problems at every level, but I think defining some bigger world problems can at
Mhm.
least give you a little better idea of like what you want to go for flavor
Yeah, no,
wise within the
I don't
city.
disagree there. I am more so that when I say these sort of things, it's usually meant at people who really take the book literally.
Hmm.
And I don't think anybody should ever do that, in my opinion. And what I'm saying was that there's a lot of questions here, and I think some of those questions are good to answer to flesh out your world a little bit to give the sort of basic premise of things. But I'm more saying that I think you might burn yourself out pretty quickly if you try answering all these questions. If you really go too far fleshing out your world before you even get to your district that you're playing in. I don't know if it's that important.
Yeah,
I
I
think it's a
mean,
certain extent, but again, that's all with the caveat that you're somebody who knows your own limits, which a lot of people as GMs don't know their own limits and burn themselves out. Um,
yeah, and I think it does say straight up say like you don't need a detailed global
yeah,
timeline or anything. Like just you just want to sketch. It's just
yeah,
something that'll inform you. Yeah, if you go too deep and you
yeah,
decide to answer each of these questions with a 4-page
yeah,
response, yeah, you'll probably burn yourself out. But yeah,
yeah.
I would say at least give yourself a
Yeah,
sketch,
sketch.
right?
But like
Like
I definitely agree with that. If your city exists in a like nuclear apocalypse world, that might change how people act or what technology is
yeah,
available and stuff versus one that's just has like an economic collapse.
yeah, and this
All
also
that stuff's
includes
fine.
like making megacorps at this point, like your major power
Yeah.
corporations is a good thing to
Yes,
have.
that one's totally fine. I
Yeah.
made mine on a smaller scale again, just because I was more focused on the districts. But I think having 5 major corps that everybody around the world knows because they're just that far reaching, or at least most of the world knows.
Yeah.
Totally good to just give you like that. Oh, this is like an impossible superpower. Like your players aren't taking down this megacorp. It's just like almost like a backdrop megacorp they're just gonna have to deal with. Yeah, the world's problems are great. You
Yeah.
have the D20 that
Arcologies, you got your Judge
yeah.
Dreads. I
Hmm.
like just despair, where everyone's just given into nihilism and so doesn't
Yeah.
want to fix any problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, famine, natural disaster, plagues, exodus to space,
Hmm.
yada yada yada. You can remake
Yeah.
Elysium,
Yeah.
my top
Um
15 Matt Damon movie. No, I like Elysium actually.
Yeah, at least it's not too bad. It's nothing crazy.
It
But
might
it's
be
fun.
the best movie that Neil Blomkamp made, honestly.
You think better than District 9?
I like
That'd be a
District
hot
9
take.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a hot take. I think I would rewatch Elysium before I'd rewatch District 9,
That's fair.
having already seen them.
Hmm.
I don't think it's necessarily better. I like what District 9 did.
Yeah.
But
No, that's fair. I mean, I could go either way. I think I like Blomkamp overall. I think his last like 4 movies have not been great.
yeah. I mean, they're all like, would you like to be beat over the head with
Yeah.
themes?
Yeah.
Which it's fine.
Yeah.
Like that's clearly a decision he's made. I don't think he's trying to
No,
be
not at
subtle
all.
about what he's doing.
Yeah, I like
But
his Oats Studio shorts that he has on YouTube and Netflix. I think
I would say, yeah, he's like funded a bunch of shorts now,
yeah,
right? Where
and a lot of them are really
yeah.
cool. They're none of them are like crazy, but they have some really fun visuals, just some fun ideas.
He does aesthetically interesting stuff really
Yeah.
well. Like, God, that's actually one reason I do really like Elysium is it just everything looks cool.
Yeah, it's a good one
Like,
aesthetically to take from.
The fucking like Bugatti shuttle.
Yeah.
It always gets me. Yeah, then we get into city. It's like, hey, you could pick an existing city and advance it in time. You can make your own city. The city has problems. Make a basic map that at least has the districts mapped out on it.
Yeah.
Pick your major corporations. Build the district that you're going to have your players start in. Don't worry about the other ones beyond like a sentence or 2 of description.
Yeah.
Of course, there are random tools for all of this.
Yeah.
And then create a starting adventure, which we get to.
Yeah. I will say
problems.
Yeah, the problems for your city. I should have done this honestly before I did the districts. I don't think I did. I would say in most cases, for most characters and what they're going to care about, I would say I think this is the best place to start. I think having like I mentioned, the general outline of your world, but I think this is where this will actually affect your players in play. So this is a good,
especially if you're running a shorter game.
Yeah. So if you roll 2, is this the same where you roll 2 tags? Because I know the district is.
I don't think this is explicitly tags, but maybe it is because there is a
yeah.
tag
You roll,
system in
roll
this
at least
game.
twice. Yeah. Sorry, I was just calling them tags, but they roll. Yeah, you roll twice in
yeah.
these problems, just like tags. And those are the 2 major things affecting your city.
Yeah, there's lots of fun stuff. New industry, nuclear blast.
Yeah.
Corp war, slave labor, renegade military. It's all fun stuff.
It's really
Very
interesting
evocative.
seeing how they might affect each other too. I love death
Yeah,
squads.
yeah. He's very good at like giving you three sentences and making it both concrete in what it means and very open in how you could apply it.
Yeah.
And these are all generally like that. And then it's build districts. The districts have traits, just like the city.
Yeah.
There's a government. There's gangs, major local corps, fixers.
Yeah.
Sketch abroad.
And these honestly, I love these just to because I know you haven't seen them, Jack. But what I had and what we're gonna be playing when we do that one shot will be in my district I made. But in my district, I rolled where basically it's essentially like a massive maze of just like buildings built on top of each other, urban maze. And then I also rolled on like slavery as a major thing. So my thoughts were like, oh, it might not just be like straight up slavery, but also wage slavery. So like you just have like this Kowloon walled city with just lots of people being like sort of just like pushed in or like taken out, and like just lots of different types of slavery that there. So I was like, okay, so this is just like an awful place to live, just a horrific place to be.
Nobody wants to be here.
Yeah, and like car, it's not even big enough for cars to get through. Like I wrote, I'll say this in our game, but for me, I was like, oh, the biggest thing you could really get through any of the biggest streets are like a tuk-tuk as like the biggest thing. Mostly motorcycles, mostly walking, going across like the different like rooftops and things. But I thought I was like, okay, yeah, this is a fun, hellish place. So just off of those two tags, it creates a lot of really, really great ideas to jump off of immediately.
Yeah, that's God. Yeah, he's very good at providing.
We've gone over how much we love the tags in the Atlas thing, but yeah, this is essentially very similar to those.
We get the Megacorp creation, which you already did a stream on that. Gang creation, it's similar. You got styles, strengths, weaknesses, events that have happened, like elements of them, their goals.
Yeah.
It's all very actionable stuff that you can use
Yeah.
to immediately pull that into your game.
Yeah, and like I said, for the name element and corp element, you might, if rolling them for fun if you like rolling on stuff, but I would not feel too bad if you roll on those and go like, I don't really like what this is giving me. So feel free to just choose from those. I think I think they're pretty fun. They give you a lot of options at least. I would just probably like pick from here instead of rolling on it personally.
Yeah. And then same thing for NPCs. Again, just all very actionable stuff. Their virtues, their personality flaws, a problem that they have, what they want.
Yeah.
And their main strength.
Yeah. I use this to make CEOs and gang leaders for the things I generated. Worked out great. They actually really created these little small stories and motivations for them, and how they might be using their factions as part of their own motivations. And next is creating and running missions.
Yeah. So there are schemes, which is like, it's a plot hook, right? Yeah. But it's more than a plot hook.
It's ongoing background stuff. I made schemes for the Megacorps. I didn't really do it for the gangs, even though you should be doing it for any major player faction should have a scheme, I think, for the most part. They can be small schemes, they can be really big schemes, but they essentially have things that the players might have jobs that affect them very little or a lot, maybe not at all if it's just a ram job, but a lot of these could be pushing schemes forward. Some schemes could actually be against other schemes. They could be affecting another Megacorp scheme. So, but a lot of it is just sort of more to keep your world having a background reason as to why people are getting hired for jobs. Just having things happening in the streets, having things happen like on the news after players might do a job where it's like, oh, we blew up this building. Maybe that led to something else happening that the players find out like, oh shit, we affected this thing, or that makes the world feel like, oh shit, stuff's happening outside of us. We're not like, the world's not surrounded by us. Whether we do this job or not, that Megacorp is going to be taking over like this part of the town or whatever it might be. But there's a good way to basically build missions for you.
It's again, this is I can only assume this is very, very, very heavily inspired by the way the Forged in the Dark handles factions, and like the schemes are equivalent to like a clock in one of those systems, where there's just background progress being made and things players can affect the clocks or the scheme progress points in this case. They can be against one another, et cetera, et cetera. Again, just a good thing to bring into a more trad game to have something, keep the plot moving around.
Yeah,
and
basically
have factions that are doing things.
Yeah,
because this game doesn't have the faction system that's in Worlds of that number and Stars of that number. So it is not there's less mechanical overhead because this is taking it and more or less making it like a more fluid thing that's happening in the background.
Yeah, essentially, missions add points to the scheme, and you have different ones. Like petty local scheme is 10 points, and you might have a job that does several points. Might do 3 points, might do 5 points. There's also milestone ones, and basically what you want to do is you want to make what the scheme is. You can roll on it. There's a scheme generation thing, but you want to work backwards. You want to make what the final goal is, and then work backwards from there. And yeah, and that'll just affect how whatever they're doing, how it pays off.
And milestones are just when they complete. I mean,
like basically a major thing that might affect the final goal. Yeah.
Right. And it's something that could affect other people's schemes. It could affect the conditions of something in the district, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Could be part of it that goes public or something.
Yeah.
As a part of this, it also gives a whole thing for making just kind of sketching out NPC operator teams that are also running.
Which I'll be doing
the background
at some point too. Just something that'd be fun as like either people to meet or as rival groups. That would be fun.
Because it straight up says a whole thing where like, hey, here's what you should prepare for a session 1, right? And then it goes on to be like, here's what the next couple sessions would look like. And at one point it's like, hey, decide whether these schemes have closed, or maybe, roll a bit and see if an NPC team took the scheme on and completed it, or took the job on and completed it. Yeah, and this I like this. When I was reading this yesterday, it's cool that it gives them like a kind of modus operandi and how they handle their jobs. But I also like that all of these, like, it's like a combatant with this, or a hacker with this, a tech or a face, and then it gives them like who is blank and also currently blank.
Yeah.
But I like that a lot of these widths are. I mean, some of them are just flavor things that maybe make them more likely to be, recruited as an ally or something. Yeah. And then some of them are like a thing that the players would want. And I like that. Where it's like, what is this? Oh, it's like a crazy weapon or something, like a heavily modded gear, a prototype that has been stolen, like things like that, where it's like, it gives you a reason to, the players a reason to want to interact with them, or maybe want to kill them or whatever, or screw them over somehow so they can get something from them.
Yeah, and I will say, in terms of like newer GM advice, if you are going to have an NPC operator team that's a rival to the group, and they're also going to be doing something you mentioned, like maybe doing schemes, like pushing schemes forward that the players decide to refuse or whatever else, make sure the players actually meet these guys or actually have some sort of interaction in some way, because if you have things happen in the background, it seems obvious, but if you have things happen in the background, the players aren't going to know. Like, it's not going to, like, you add no drama by players not knowing things. So have them show up, do certain things, maybe be helpful or fuck with them, or just whatever way you want them to be part of the story. But make sure they do appear in the story. Otherwise, it's like, cool, you're just basically playing with yourself in the background while players are like, oh, I guess things are happening. Cool.
Yeah.
I mostly say that because Jack was a part of this Discord, but there's a Discord full of people who do not really play RPGs, and there's one guy going on about building an entire background economic system for his game, and I was like, don't do that. Just roll on stuff, or have players know. If you can build a whole economic system that you roll on all the time, but if the players don't see it, the fuck does it matter?
You might as well just be playing Victoria.
Yeah. Just if you want an NPC operator team that's in the background that you don't want to, that you want them doing things, you don't even really need to make these guys. You can just say there's some shadow group doing things, and you can save yourself a bunch of the hassle.
Yeah. And that's nice that this game gives you an in-between option, which is there's this NPC scheme results where it's just like, here's some modifiers for the team, roll 2d6 and see if they succeeded or not. And there's, consequences and stuff. And like, if you go by like the classic conventions of like playing Shadowrun or something, people who are taking on these jobs, I don't remember if it actually it just calls them operators, right?
Yeah.
Like, operators know each other. They talk. Like, you have all these people who are working in this same gray area industry of being hired by corps and people. Like, you're going to know these people. you have a reputation. Like, so whether you have the BBS from Shadowrun or
exactly
just whatever.
Yeah, no, and you definitely, I mean, making a bar where a lot of operators hang out or are known to go to, like, through whatever is a classic staple and location that you should have at some point. So, yeah, so that's that.
All right.
There's stuff on creating missions.
I'm I'm whelmed by this, I guess. I again, like, I have a hard time going back and imagining it being as satisfying to run heists and these kind of missions in a trad game as it is in like a more narrative game, with a lot of built-in fail forward mechanics, and a lot more narrative control than this provides. I think this is totally fine. I think you as a GM need to be careful that you don't turbo fuck your players by making the consequences of their actions that they fuck things up real bad and get killed. There is, I mean, we can go over, I mean, it's the actual chunks of this. Like, there's a hook that you roll tags for that allows you to generate mission hooks. If you want to flesh it out into a mission, there's, you know, a flow for, you know, identifying. I think this is all generally good advice. Like, it's a good order of operations, doing the NPCs first, then picking out your important places, then mapping the places that are the most important, that you may end up, you know, actually needing like a tactical map for, and then do a walkthrough and try to predict what your players are going to do. It's going to go wrong, obviously, but and then there's the explicit aftermath, which is there's a heat system, as we've mentioned before, generating new hooks, progressing the world, etc. I guess we didn't quite get to what I was.
It's a good template for people who are not.
It's really solid. I think it's about as good as you're going to get for designing this kind of thing in this kind of game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people who do play these trad games don't play the narrative games because it's a niche within a niche already. So I do personally.
Forge in the Dark is fairly popular.
That's true. That is true. That's more popular than these games anyway. So that's fair.
Almost definitely.
Yeah. I would just say for people who don't play those kinds of games, because they are really a different style. I do think this is the best you're gonna get, in my opinion, from looking at Cyberpunk Red and also especially looking at Shadowrun. This game will do all that for you, I think, much better. I use these tools a little bit when I wrote the mission for our game next week, but I didn't really need much help in that stuff. I think this will help a lot of people who don't know what to do, or if you're just running a sandbox game, you're like, man, my creative output is gonna hit its limit eventually. I do need to use these. So you have mission tags that you can use, and these tags work the same way as the other without number games, where you have what do they stand for? You have the E, F, C, T, and P. You have enemies, friends,
complications, things and places. Yeah.
So you have all those.
That's actually also my Myers-Briggs result. EFCTP.
Yeah, so you have all those. A lot of them, like the other games, really, really good stuff to use as just jumping off points. But
we have that entire video where we use the tag system to generate stuff. It's super fucking easy. It's very, very intuitive, very fun.
I'll be honest. Honestly, that Worlds Outnumber hex crawl game we did, a lot of stuff, even though it isn't a 1-for-1, is probably close enough for how to run these sorts of things in terms of just building up the world.
Absolutely. It's a little different because you're not doing like a hex crawl. Obviously, you're just generating
you're probably going off of schemes, but same sort of idea. Just put them together. And you'll get
the thing we started to do, which was make a starter adventure, is kind of what this game is telling you to do anyway, right? You generate some. In this case, you have some schemes, and you generate some hooks. I will say the next part, though, that I personally like a lot, mission types, which gives you a 9 different ones: defense, espionage, murder, rescue, retrieval, sabotage, scouting, smuggling, and theft. And then also on the table it says roll twice, one type turns into another. I actually do like this a lot. I think if you do have an idea for an espionage one, and it says like, why can't they get themselves? Which gives you that question, because a lot of times players will ask you a question like that, and you're like, oh shit, I totally forgot to actually think about, and like, which is fine, part of it is improv, but this might actually give you just a solid reason as to why they can't do it. What kind of patron did they put up? What profit will give a thief? How obscure is a secret? Why is it gives you a twist, which is always great.
Twist situations, so and all the questions there are pretty much specific to the type of mission it is. I did use parts of this as just an idea for our mission next week, but I think it has pretty much every mission type you could think of. You have retrieval, sabotage, espionage, defense, just scouting, bunch of stuff.
And then we get some explicit stuff on making an intrusion mission, which is a heist, right? Your classic, like, get in, get the thing, get out kind of mission, or kill the person, whatever the thing is. And like we said, I think this is about as good as you can get given the structure of this kind of game. This does bring up the thing that I thought was a good like system that mitigates you fucking your players over immediately. Like it goes through a lot of, do the stuff in this order, like identify the goal, identify the opposition, the site, develop the map, you add your security, add your NPCs, place employees and stuff in there, which is a good thing to think about actually, put your guards and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the reaction countdown I think is really key to
yes,
making sure you don't make it impossible for people to succeed in a game with a binary success failure mechanic like this. There's no such thing as a mixed success in Cities Without Number. You succeed or fail, and it's up to you as the GM to make sure that you can fail forward enough that things aren't impossible until they are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to go off what you've been saying, like this whole time, yeah. Honestly, it's not a bad idea to grab a game like Blades in the Dark or one of their derivatives and just look through the tools they have for heists in those games. Because the more I've played narrative games, the more I take from those games and bring them into trad games a lot more often. So there's also a good to look at the gym advice in those games as well, because they might have some extra stuff to help you.
Right. Embrace that like no but. You know, like no you don't, but like I think that's the big thing that's meant, because you can't, in a game where there are explicit partial successes, that yes but becomes a vital part of the game, right?
Yeah, that's my favorite improv style. Just shut the player down every time.
No and
no and fuck you.
But you can't add a yes but into a binary game, but you can add a no but, and I think that's important. But to help you add not no and try to reduce your ability to immediately no and them into death. There is this reaction countdown system, and this is when your idea of minutes comes in, right? Like things on a mission take instead of taking like exploration turns like they would in Worlds Without Number, they take minutes. So like picking a lock takes a minute. Searching a desk takes a minute. Searching a whole room takes 5 minutes. Fighting with security will take, one fight will take a minute. And we have this example countdown for reaction, which is, I believe, the reaction countdown. I mean, this is just an example one, but it's like if you trigger a general alert, this is how things will happen. So like at 0, the alert sounds obviously, and then it takes a full minute before the patrols move towards their posts. They might search the point of contact if they don't have that, if it's like a more lightly patrolled place. And then it takes an additional 2 minutes before other people start fucking doing anything at all. And then it takes 2 more minutes before the security who aren't on patrol wonder if they need to go do something else. And then it takes 5 more minutes before they start alerting offsite teams. So it makes it so as soon as people are found out, it's not just like, we're turbo fucked, we need to leave. Right? It's like, hey, no, like things take time. Give your players a chance to do something, because it's going to take time before the situation escalates. And I really, really like that. I think that's a really key thing that was in here to stop these like kind of death spirals that can tend to happen in heisty games.
Well, and the other thing too to remember with a lot of stuff is that I think it can be easy to immediately go like, oh, you're turbo fucked, there's all these things. But like, if you do think about where they're going, because if they've gone to like an actual super high security government thing, there might be guys who are right there that are going to attack you. But like a random building that has a security thing, the response time might be like 15 minutes. Or if it's like in a really bad part of town where it's like, actually the cops that we have on payroll, we don't pay them that much, so their response time is a fucking hour. It could be anything depending on just think about where they're actually, like where they actually are, and then you can change from there. Because some guys might come right away and other ones will be like, yeah, no, like we're on our way, but you only pay us this much. We have other companies that pay us way more. We're gonna if they get an alert, we're gonna focus on them more than we're gonna focus on you. So and it forces you to think about like everybody in the facility is not immediately going to run towards the problem, right? They might. If there's only 3 guards, they might all go that way. Or they're poorly trained or something. But if you're in a big fucking facility, a lot of those guys they have places they're supposed to go in case of an emergency. Like, and they're on alert, but they're not just converging on the party automatically. Exactly. And I think also stuff like this, if once the players are aware of how the game works, I think they can also do stuff to make it more fun. Where like if the players are actually triggering alerts like every day, like 10 days before the heist, maybe by the time they actually do go in, the guys are so used to the heist being triggered, or like the alarm being triggered. Maybe the response time is actually like an extra 10 minutes because they know they have to check, but they're like, oh fuck, the alarm's going off again. Yeah, like, so I think, and just before we move on, because we skipped past it real quick, or I don't know if we did or not, but there is also one role fixer generation, which is a different page from the NPC generation. I also did this. I did 4 of these in the gang generation stream. Also really good. If you need fixers, these made some really good fixers. I found that were all very different from each other. So I just wanted to add that before we skip past. But yeah, that's it on fixers on mine.
So we get into some like playing the mission, do the setup, talking about negotiating with NPCs to get information or get access to things, getting favors from your contacts, moving around the city. This is another like 2-page spread that I think is like, especially if you are not used to running heists, read this. This will be very useful for you to kind of internalize the structure of what that should look like. And this is functional. This is downtime from Forge in the Dark. This is when you would do all this shit to, procure the supplies you would need, get the information you would need, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And then the run itself, this is where that example activity and the time it takes. It's good. I mean, things take minutes. Look at reactions when time advances. You check for encounters every so often to see if you randomly bump into a patrol or something. A scene starts after a fight or every 10 minutes. I actually think there's a discrepancy in here, which is it says it takes 5 minutes to do first aid after combat. I'm pretty sure it says it takes 1 at the front of the book.
Yeah,
but
probably just a mistake.
Wonder which one it's supposed to be. In any case. And yeah, we get a nice example.
Yeah, and honestly, there's we skipped over a lot of these, but there's examples of play through several of the sections. For hacking, there's one that I found helped me understand a little bit more because I was a little bit confused at first. And they're all very helpful. And yeah, and you have mission rewards and experience, which is extremely helpful in my opinion because there's not as much cyberpunk stuff out there, especially if you're doing a sandbox game where you're making all your own stuff. It's not as easy as grabbing dungeons off of a bookshelf for Worlds That Number like I usually do, where there's a lot of like things I'm gonna throw in. So having the base payout for team level, and then you sort of modify that by the client, how desperate they are, how rich they are, whatever, all the dangers and all that. So this gives you ideas of how much you should be paying out to your players per mission. And there's also the extra loot table, and there's also example loot and pay data files. So covers all that stuff, which is nice, since this is not, I mean, even though there's a lot of cyberpunk resources out there, this is not as overwhelmingly popular as fantasy is.
And yeah, it's cool. Like it's nice to give you a broad idea of how much a job should be making. And you get paid enough that you're not going to be broke from an average job, right? Like you can make pretty decent money.
Yeah. And also
the modifiers are cool.
You mentioned earlier.
The additional loot that I mentioned earlier, great stuff. On average, you should be placing, it's a 2d6 table, 100% of the value of the job and extra loot thrown around. And it shouldn't all be fucking hidden behind everything. Like some of that should be accessible to the players. And yeah, here's the cash for levels chart, which there's some justification here why you might want to do this. I think it could make sense.
Yep.
More sense in this than it does in like a normal fantasy game that's not like a dungeon crawl.
I guess maybe this could work if you're gonna use this to run something like what's that mothership one? Gradient Descent. Maybe if you were gonna use the system, if you're gonna use a system for a sci-fi like game where you might do more weird dungeon crawling stuff. If you were gonna change if you're just using the system but not like the inherent like way you play this, because it's being useful for that sort of thing. Okay, next is Heat, which is just basically like your GTA stars, but for whenever you do things. Because even though the corps are strong enough to do things, a lot of them are going to leave people alone because they obviously can't spend resources stamping out every cyberpunk that's out there, every operator. But once you become
space punk who is out there,
but I mean, once you become too much of a problem, like they have to deal with you. So this is a good way. This is a good way so that players don't try and shoot their way in and out of every mission you give them, because they shouldn't be necessarily. Things can go wrong, but you are meant to sort of try and be smart about these things, because also players themselves probably aren't going to want to fight too much if they get one stray bullet that's a fucking trauma thing could just immediately end a PC. Right. So I won't go through each one of them too much, but like Heat Zero, the corps will tend to actively avoid bothering the PCs. Any team that can operate this smoothly and neatly isn't asked to be cultivated. Heat 1 to 3 is the PCs have better stay out of the offices of their victims and avoid the security crews, but the corpse won't go out of their way to cause problems. Captured operators are unlikely to be killed. Going down further to Heat 6 to 7, at this level, the team's enemies are actively seeking their death. And then Heat, like, 10 plus, I'm just skipping through much. The PCs personally enraged a megacorp or city government. If they're not prepared to face down an enemy of that scale, the death of them and all their friends and associates is all but certain. And there's a few in there that I skipped between those, but yeah, so there's all those different levels of a good way to sort of keep track how much they piss off whoever they screwed over. So
yeah, and this is another thing that is straight up a mechanic in Forge in the Dark, like generating heat. Great way to push the story along, to incentivize the party to take risks in being loud, but also to not exclusively buy the biggest gun possible and kick the door down.
And that's where you could probably incorporate some NPC operator teams who might be sent to kill the PCs, that sort of thing. On the next page after that, there is the heat gain. So it actually shows you how much heat they should gain. Killing a law enforcement officer is +3 gain. Killing a corp CEO is +10 for obvious reasons.
Just straight, you like yeah, of course it is.
Yeah. So it's and then there's ways to lose heat, laying low, paying fines, paying bribes, and there's some special ones here like turning yourself into the authorities or free work for an offended corp. Different ways to burn that heat.
Yeah, then we get into some just general GM advice that I think is very useful to read, talking about how, like, don't suppose balance in these games. Like, if you're gonna go attack a corp, like, they're not gonna be 2 hit dice. Like, there's gonna be some bad motherfuckers out there that you probably can't deal with at first level.
Do not Skyrim scale the players on what they do. If they want to they want to go straight into a corp headquarters skyscraper and just try and blast their way through, they're going to come across a lot more than they can handle, probably. So
right. It also does some good stuff, which is like NPCs are people. A good thing to remember. Like, make them act. You know, they don't have to be fully fleshed out in all of their aspects, but make them do reasonable things.
Yeah. A cyber psycho is going to act a lot differently than just a fucking rent-a-cop who's just doing a minimum wage job.
Yeah, and it gets into use reaction rolls and morale checks in these games. Do not forget to do morale checks when you're running without numbers games. Yeah. Jesus Christ. People are not going to fight to the last man every single time. Most people will never do that. Like, they will run.
And honestly, you can also do what I do, because I do morale checks, because honestly, sometimes in the first round, if they just fucking murder 4 of a 5-guy team, I might just go, you're probably going to fail the same way. This guy's fucking booking it or giving himself in, because it just thematically makes sense. Not everybody is going to fight to the death. Most people don't want to die. Most creatures don't want to die. Obviously, robots and programs are going to fill out their programming. But outside of that, a lot of people who aren't zealots are going to probably give in. Also, before we move on, I just want to say that on the page up, the picture of the woman reading a book in front of like a
post-apocalypse mask.
I just imagine that on a lo-fi beats playlist on YouTube, just like. But yeah, so I agree. Reaction rolls and morale checks, extremely important. And then they, on the next page, show you how to do those.
Yeah.
All very simple stuff.
Then we get into NPCs and stat blocks. NPCs have hit dice. They have AC. They have a trauma target. They have a generic single score for skills, like an World's number. They have a single score for saves. Their attacks, their damage, shock, move, morale level. Their danger value, which this game tries to provide like a CR calculation, to use D&D terminology. I don't know how well it works, but it at least tries to give you an idea of how dangerous something is compared to the PCs, because hit dice obviously don't tell the whole story in a game. There's also like gear and cyber that they might have. So for this first page is like beasts and guard animals, guard dogs, a cybered up beast, bioweapon.
Oh, that bioweapon has 2 edges, by the way. It has veterans luck and killing blow. So
that's right. Yeah, you can give them edges. Yeah. That's also an 8 hit die monster with a danger value. It's like, what's a guard dog? Danger value 2. Okay. Cybered attack beast 15. That seems like a big number. Experimental bioweapon 48.
I do love Boom Kitty. It's so dark.
It's such a fuck you thing too.
Yeah,
its danger value is cute.
Are you?
This is a little.
That's bit, okay. That's funny. Man, Casey's getting a lot more cheeky with his as the books go on. He's getting real cheeky.
Fucking walking mountain as mountain.
Yeah, no, the boom key is fun. Just basically an implanted plastic explosives inside a cat, and you can use them as like basically
Goes off like a grenade.
Yeah. Then you have court guards and law enforcement, which gives you everything from low end private security all the way up to Megacorp CEO personal guard. And you like if you look at like the Megacorp CEO personal guard and even the ones below that guy, you see how much cyberware they have, what they do. Like it really
he's like a robot more or less at that point.
Yeah, he's Adam Smashers is who he is.
Yeah.
So you have all those
things. It's such a dumb name.
I think that's what makes it funny though, because it's just like this legendary guy called Adam Smasher.
The fact that people are unironically like, "Oh my god, it's Adam Smasher."
Oh yeah.
Like, sounds like a fucking C-tier porn star. Like,
yeah. But yeah, so you have all their cyber showing there on the side. Then you have gangers and criminals. Same deal. You show what cyber they have, what weapons they have, all their stuff.
I think this is about as compact but descriptive as you could do.
As you could get,
frankly, for something like this. Reasonable. I think it would be easy for some of these guys to remember all the stuff that they have, but also like if they're fighting a 10 hit die legendary hired killer, I would hope that you did a little bit of prep for the game to make sure you know what they have.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and don't make the mistake a lot of people make that are new to this stuff. Don't just put one big guy against a party, one enemy versus a full team of 5 or 4.
So it's interesting because it talks about designing enemies after this. Obviously, like it gives you some guidelines for hit dice, tells you about adding cyberware. Most NPCs don't use foci and don't have edges, but some of them might. They have more than 4 hit dice. Their gear, and then do their stat calculations, and then it does this danger rating calculation, which is like your CR. And interestingly, like to your point of like the number of people, the single biggest factor on somebody's, I mean, obviously like their hit dice and stuff factor in, but if they have enhanced reflexes 3, it's a ×5 multiplier to their danger, because it turns out getting to attack like 2 extra times is a huge fucking deal. So like it drills, and it explicitly said that, like, note the enormous difference that enhanced reflexes cyber has in the total. Cyber systems that grant bonus actions have a huge impact on NPC danger because they tend to burn their actions quickly and nova their damage before the PCs can kill them off. They only have to survive 1 fight. Like they're going to use all their resources to not die. So it's very dangerous when they can go, I shoot you 4 times in 1 round, fuck you. Like,
yeah, exactly. So so if you do have one guy, definitely do that. Or like I said, it's just a constant mistake that I see repeated over and over and over again with newer GMs. One big guy, unless you have stuff like this where you have all these extra moves or give them like legendary actions, just the action economy, especially in this game where all the players could potentially, or more than likely, go first, will probably just eviscerate them. So having ways around that is good. I just wanted to mention that as much as I can, just because I constantly see this issue, even with people who played for a while, be like, this one big guy will do. It's like, dude, like, you
action
have 4 players.
King.
Yeah, one of them has alert. Like, they're gonna go first, and then they're gonna beat the shit out of your big dude. So maybe don't do that.
Yeah. We get a nice single line description of like all the cyber that you would give NPCs right after this, which is really nice. It's just like, what kind of cyber is it? What is it? Can you see it? And then one quick blurb about what it does.
Perfect.
This is super useful, I think, just to have in general. I would probably print this table out just for my own reference, frankly. And then we get a setting, which is him ostensibly using his own rules to make a setting for this. I didn't really read this. I didn't find it as interesting as the Ladder Earth setting.
Yeah, I like it as a little box that says "Don't try this at home." The default
I was
setting
say that's the one thing I was going to note. Is he's like, don't do this.
Yeah, he's just doing this just so that people have, because you can just take this as your base and then jump off from here if you want to.
Yeah, or use it to see like what you would end up with after 10 sessions of doing stuff, right?
Exactly.
He also does some extra stuff, which is like deciding the crime and enforcement stuff for this specific city that gives you a good jumping off point for that. Talks about, and then we get into like marriage, like the social stuff, children and childbirth, gang affiliations, ethnic and religious groups, gender and identity.
And these are all good things to take.
Setting.
I think these are all good to take for your own, like, especially like the marriage and crime and punishment like are here. Like, I think just taking these tables and these things is totally good to have this here. So you don't have to worry about yourself, because you can just, especially the crime and punishment, I think works for most cyberpunk world. So, but yeah, outside that, it mostly just goes to the districts that he made with it. He says, like, I say he, the book says, pick a starting district, generate 3 significant local corps, generate 3 gangs, generate 3 fixers, create 5 schemes, create a starting mission, and use the district scheme to help create 4 mission hooks. And this is like all for like a major campaign kind of thing. Like this is the sort of prep you do before session. Maybe not session 0. Potentially you might have just maybe the mission or a few things done, but just don't burn yourself out is what I want to constantly keep saying. Because I do think people, their eyes are bigger than their stomach when it comes to making stuff, and you get all these cool ideas, and then before you even get to the table, you're already tired of all the stuff you had to do, which this book and their books always tell you not to do. So
yeah. Then we get into a section on mixing the games together. We don't need to go through this just because if you want to do this, you will read this part of the book.
Exactly.
But there are rules for how to change all the other major Sign No Mind games into namely Worlds Without Number and Stars Without Number to work with the cities system.
Yeah, so it has the armor stuff for the different games. Okay, cool. Nice.
Yeah. Then we get some supplemental material, which is it's also nice. So there was an SRD released for this game, and the PDF is free for the basic edition. And then if you want this extra stuff we're going to talk about, this is in the deluxe edition.
Yeah.
It's fun that he explicitly says you're welcome to share relevant parts of the book with players who want to take advantage of the new class options but can't afford a PDF of their own.
Yeah.
Deluxe PDF has no DRM on it, and you have permission to pass it over to the player for their own use if it proves helpful.
Yep, there you go.
Obviously, people are gonna do that anyway, but it's nice to just go like, "Hey, man, like, don't feel bad."
Yeah, well, I mean, some people are really anal about this stuff, but I think in Kevin Crawford's Kickstarter thing, he just made a really good point, and this is a really good information for anybody who's making RPGs or honestly anything. Your hardest thing, your biggest problem as a creator is not people stealing your stuff. It's that nobody fucking notices you. You're in a world with so many content creators. You're vying for anybody to notice your stuff. That's why he puts his stuff out for free. It's also probably one of the reasons why, other than his good content, that he has probably risen above some other people, is that he's just been like, yeah, it's so easy to get my stuff. Anybody can grab it. So,
yeah, it's better to have 10% of a big market than 100% of a small market.
Exactly.
Like,
but this supplemental material is essentially some extra stuff on cyber stuff, and then it's also the Shadowrun section. If you want to use this to play Shadowrun,
Cyberpunk.
Yeah, in Cyberpunk, yeah. If you want to play those games, this is what what's for. So we can just get into that.
So yeah, we don't have to spend too much time on most of this either, I don't think. So yeah, we get fun like cyber line product quirks, like different companies and their cybernetics having particular quirks that are common to all of their stuff. This is kind of analogous to the weapon or other company quirks that are mentioned in the mods part.
Yeah,
they're all modded, and some of these are just straight up the mods that you could put on normal cyberware.
Yeah.
But it's this specific company, whatever that company may be.
Mm-hmm.
And there's positive and negative traits.
Yeah, so those are really those are extremely cool. I like I like it a lot because I like the idea of a really shitty line, but you get it for really cheap, just because it has some bad quirks. Next is the Variant Humanity, and I love these names because these names just remind me of the stupid names Games Workshop has given their races so that they can just like copyright them. You have the Eloy,
but these let you get the Shadowrun races.
Yeah, exactly. You have Skyborn for dwarves, Eloy for elves. They give you focus benefits for being variants if you take those. Morlocks are orcs, and then ogres are, well, ogres. So
yeah, well, there are trolls in Shadowrun.
Are they trolls in Shadowrun? Okay,
yeah, they're trolls. Yeah, it's orcs and elves, dwarves, orcs, and trolls.
Right.
They're the Shadowrun races. Like, I don't know what you want.
Yeah.
I guess, are there dwarves in Shadowrun?
There
I think so, actually.
There are, yeah.
They're like halflings, aren't there?
No, there's dwarves. I'm playing Shadowrun Cyberpunk right now. Yeah, these are all.
I couldn't remember yet because I know what's her face. Isabel.
I will say, yeah, she's a dwarf, but she does not look like a dwarf. Yeah, not that that's inherent in the text. Just that, like, yeah, you look at her picture and you don't immediately think dwarf, but yeah, that's fun. If you want to play Shadowrun, all the rules are in here, and I would much rather play Shadowrun in this system than with Shadowrun. Yep. So. Yeah, and like so I honestly I think I might actually do a stream of me generating a Shadowrun like operator team, because I think that'd be fun to do just to see how they might look. But before we get to the other Shadowrun stuff, there's Cyber Alienation, which is essentially Cyber Psycho stuff. For in some parts of the Chrome Syndrome, Cyber-Induced Psychosis, just alienation. Just if you're looking at these themes of transhumanism, you might want to incorporate these into your game about, you know, what it is to be human, what changes happen to people who change so much themselves. I don't know if there's anything you want to add on this, Jack, if there's anything.
No, yeah, if you want to explore the kind of drawbacks that would come and place a more like heavy psychological and physical burden on, removing parts of your own body voluntarily, then this is here for you.
Yeah. This is the kind of thing you want to ask your players first to see if they're interested in
sure.
doing it, because this is extra rules, extra stuff, obviously, but anything, but just,
parts of it obviously are there so you can do the cyber psycho thing from
Cyberpunk.
From Cyberpunk. But also I could see this if you wanted to do just a little darker of a game, frankly. These could be interesting to use and I don't know, make it more interesting to do. We then get cheap cyber, which is the opposite. If you would like it to be super plentiful and pretty decent, there's a bunch of cheap street cyber that are cost less than most of the guns in the game. Want everybody to have access to
this is very Cyberpunk, and Shadowrun, honestly, where it's everybody kind of has cyber and it's of varying quality.
Then we get into would you like some you got a little bit of Shadowrun, would you like some more? And we get into magic, and it's mostly analogous to Worlds Number casting. It's not as strong generally, but it covers the same beats that Shadowrun does. So you have your normal mages, shaman, who are summoners,
and then you have the blessed,
who can still cast but are mostly spirit summoning, and then adepts, who are monks. And that's also, if you wanted to take that all natural one, the adept is the classic I do not, it's not good for me to replace parts of my body.
So they all have edges you need to take at the first level. You can't take any of these edges later on. They have to be at first level if you're gonna do this. They give you bonus skills that aren't on the base sheet that you can just add to it, which I also like that those aren't there, because I did think one thing with Stars Outnumbered that I do think is not a design problem but just inherent in the game is spellcasting, and you might not want mages in your sci-fi game, because it's a very specific style game, whether it's Star Wars or if it's just the dark version like it is in Stars Outnumbered. So having it on the sheet, I think, would make players inherently think that's always going to be in every system. So having it not there but have a thing you can add, I think, is a better design choice in my opinion. So you have the mage effort. These act very similar to, like you said, to the mages in Worlds Outnumbered, but they are different enough. You have a list of commonly known spells, and there's mechanics for how many spells they can cast per day and how many they can know. And same with summoners. There's an edge. There's a skill called summoning, and there's the spirit abilities and all that stuff.
And the graced are the adepts, and you can't wear cyberware. Permanently reduces your art points, but you can get graced arts that are analogous to the really strong cyberware, Sublime Alacrity is enhanced reflexes 3. Real good. Then there's magic items. They incur system strain. You have to attune with them in this game. It's called linking. Talks about attaining them. Gives you some stuff for generating magical weapons. Some more hand weapon tables, magic elixirs.
So if you watch the movie Bright with Will Smith and you want to make an actual good story, you could basically take that and then just do something better with it in here, and that's basically what you can use this for.
Cysts, which are the spirit summoning totem. I think totems in Shadowrun.
It's totems in Shadowrun.
Where it's I spend this to summon a
and there's stuff for everything you need for this. I can go into it a little bit fast. There's summoner spirits. There's a base amount of there's stat blocks for spirits to use as a base and other stuff. So really, if you do want to do Shadowrun this, I honestly think pretty much everything's here except for whatever lore you might want extra. But this is. You can just buy those books for those things. This is
go buy one of the 97,000 books that exists already for Shadowrun.
Exactly. So. Exactly. But I think overall it's pretty good. I will at some point make a stream probably making these guys. I think it'd also be fun to do a Shadowrun AP using this, called Shade Joggers or something. And just a real discount version.
Darkness Joggers.
yeah. But I think that's pretty much the entire book. You have the index and backer names, that sort of thing. I don't know if there's anything else we want to go over, but I think that's everything. That's the book, and we did it in a faster time than we did the Atlas. But I also think that's because the Atlas we were also covering was the number. 3.5 hours.
A mere 3 hours and 40 minutes.
But thank you so much for joining me for this, Jack.
Of course, anytime.
I'm looking forward. I really had wished that we had gone to gaming before we did this. We could have had a first impression section, but it is what it is. But I do think from building it, I think next week's game is going to be good. And I think I honestly just would really love to do a sandbox Cyberpunk game with this. I know you prefer the narrative stuff, but I do think, like, in terms of getting people in who just want a D&D style thing and don't want to change complete styles of play, I do think this is a good way to get people in without needing to do the crunchy game of Cyberpunk Red or Shadowrun. To do so.
Yeah, I mean, I think this game takes a lot of steps to make sure that you don't end up with the bad parts that happen. This is the most vague statement I've ever fucking made. But it tries to mitigate your ability to, like, death spiral your players and make their actions feel meaningful, and, like, you know, make it so them spending 45 minutes preparing for the mission doesn't immediately make it go down the toilet when somebody fails a single roll, right? Which is the classic problem like Shadowrun has, is you spend all this time prepping and then you fail a single roll and then it's fucked. Why did you do any of that? And, like, that's those kind of mechanics are something that's inherent to more narrative style games, and I think they've done a good job, or he's done a good job, putting stuff in here that encourages encourages you to play in the same way that you'd be able to with more narrative control, but while still just you're playing a D20 game at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited to play this next week. I would run this, obviously. I think it would be a lot more work to run than if you were going to play, like, Runners in the Shadows, which is a Shadowrun hack for Blades in the Dark. Like, at this point, I've run a fair amount of Blades in the Dark in my life, probably 25 or 30 sessions. I don't need to do prep to run a Blades game or Runners in the Shadows game. You have to prep for this.
You can't not.
You
prep
have
for
to
this.
make missions.
That is one thing.
So if you're looking for a zero prep or a very low prep Cyberpunk game, this is not that.
This is not it.
If you are looking for a Cyberpunk game that is still very much like a tactical combat game, OSR style game, but gives you as many tools as it can to run a fun Cyberpunk like incursion heist style game, then this is what you want. And I think it does a great job at that.
If you're from a group that tries to slam 5e into every genre and type of game out there, you can just take this instead if you're trying to do a Cyberpunk game that's still based off of some level of DNA.
Speaking of which, at the end of this stream, my Kickstarter for 5e Cyberpunk is going to open. It's a 378-page document on top of the 5e core rulebook. You do need the entire set of 3 5e core rulebooks. We don't reprint any of the text, even though the SRD exists. So, that's going to be starting at $89.99. We're adding dice, miniatures, stickers, patches, a big box. One of them is made out of wood if you pay an extra $650. And we're also including a demo of a video game that we'll be producing if we get over $1.5 million. So stay tuned for that. It's
going out then, and it will still release before Mothership gets into your hands.
It will, the PDFs will be out before Mothership.
I made a joke about Mothership not releasing in a video 6 months ago, and it's still irrelevant. Like it's like Mandalore making a joke about Star Citizen in a video back in 2018, and it's still relevant now.
God, it's so funny.
But
they made $1.4 million. We're allowed to hit them like a
penny. Absolutely. I mean, I didn't even back them, so I just think it's hilarious.
No.
But thank you everybody for watching. I should probably just say a quick thanks to all my patrons for supporting me. It's very helpful and allows us to do more stuff like this and to put more money back into the channel. So thank you guys, and thank you, Jack, for joining me for
always
almost
fun to be
4
here.
hours. You're just gonna be typecast as the without numbers guy. So you better hope Kevin Crawford keeps making these.
Jack without numbers over here.
Jacket without numbers is my favorite erotic.
That's me IRL. That's why I got so much chafing, Alex.
All right. See you guys. Thank you for watching.
See everybody. Bye.